but it's so different. I mean, the amount of third party. Hello, good evening, and welcome to the breakdown and our pre-debate show tonight. I am Tara Setmayer here with my buddy Rick Wilson, and we will be joined by the one and only Anthony Scaramucci, the former White House communications director. If you're watching the debate tonight with us, you want to know more, we're going to answer your questions after the debate, so don't fret. Be sure to tweet at us, hashtag #AskTheBreakdown, and we will be answering questions and breaking down the debate after its conclusion. Come right back here and make sure you watch us and tweet, hashtag #AskTheBreakdown. Send in your questions, and we'll take some of those later on tonight. No voicemail tonight, folks. No voicemail tonight, only tweets. So, our first guest really needs no introduction. He spent some time as the White House communications director, to the point where we have now come up with a terminology for time, one full Scaramucci. But he's a good sport about it. Welcome, Anthony Scaramucci. Welcome to LPTV and the Breakdown.
Well, Tara, it's great to be here, Rick. It's great to see you. And
Hey,
yes, it was 11 days, but I also sometimes say 954,000 seconds. Makes me feel better when I'm talking to my therapist. But life is good, and what a learning experience for me, and frankly, a learning experience for the country, because we've got 63 million people that voted for Mr. Trump, and we've got a great project, the Lincoln Project, that's creating an off-ramp for those people to recognize his sinisterness and how destructive he is to the American society.
That's for sure. And I will say that I was hard on you back during those days. And I'm glad to see that you've had a mea culpa and that we're all fighting on the same side. And the more the merrier. So I'm glad that you had a come to Jesus moment. I wish more people would have, others would have. So
Well,
I'm sure
you were hard on me, Tara, but nobody was harder on me than the lovely Rick Wilson. I just want everybody to know that. Okay? Nobody was harder on me than him.
You,
Okay?
you
I
never want to be.
After Rick beat me up, I almost lost my hair, but it's still here, thank God. But it was rough. It was rough there for a little while.
You never want to be on the receiving end of the fire of the Rick Wilson. That's for sure.
No,
I'm glad I've never been on it.
He is a total ninja fighter. Okay, he's WMA of politics.
For sure. So I'm sure over the weekend you happened to come upon a little light reading about Donald Trump's taxes, or the lack thereof of the taxes he paid over the years. Oh my goodness gracious! Well, we that's hysterical. Can we play that again, please?
Do that again, please.
Play it again.
Good luck,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Well, first
That's
of all,
about
I just have to ask a rhetorical question to everybody. Who in their life has paid the exact same amount in federal taxes 2 years in a row? Is there anybody on planet Earth other than Donald Trump
Never.
that can make that claim?
No, no one. And which is, part of why we're where we are today, because he seems to fail up more than anyone that we've ever seen, all the way up into the presidency. And the country has been in the thrall of this con man act for years now, since he got elected. And just to see it laid out there with such clarity and in such detail, extraordinary reporting done by the New York Times. I smell another Pulitzer for them on the way, but nobody is more skilled in tax avoidance or governance avoidance than Donald Trump. And I have to say that it was predictable. Those of us who were never Trumpers predicted that he would run the country into the ground the way he's run businesses into the ground. You wrote a book about it, Rick Wilson. Everything Trump touches dies. And look at where we are.
I kind of did. Well, it is
are.
no surprise. It is no surprise, Tara. And one of the things I wrote about in that book is a story I've told before here and elsewhere. In 2015, I went to see a billionaire donor, and he said to me, I was afraid. I said, in 2015, I said, listen, Donald Trump's a billionaire. He could spend his own money. He'd do this and that. The guy leans back and goes, Donald Trump's not a billionaire. I'm a billionaire. Donald Trump is a clown living on credit. He's a clown living on credit. And when he's done with his presidency, really soon now, He has a $421 million debt overhang at the minimum. I think we may not have seen all the debt overhang yet. I'm sure there's an awful lot more out there. Um, and and it is one of the things I think going into this debate tonight that's going to be hovering over Donald Trump's head is the fact that he's paid that for 11 straight years he paid nothing in income taxes, and that for 2 years, as Anthony pointed out, he paid the exact same amount of $750 2 years in a row. I mean, that's not like a tax avoidance number. That's like a fuck you number to the IRS. And as we've all learned, don't say fuck you to the IRS. Trust me on this one. So,
or you'll be under audit, right?
Hi, been there.
Yeah.
Anyway, meanwhile, let's roll the meanwhile.
Meanwhile, at Trump's White House lair.
A stunning New York Times report on President Trump's tax returns shows he paid just $750 in federal income tax in 2016 and 2017.
Did you say $750.00?
The president's tax tactics could open him up to serious legal issues when he leaves office.
According to the Times, most of the president's core businesses report losing millions year after year.
He sold all his stocks in 2014, 2015.
He's getting squeezed. The Times lowballed his debt. Donald probably has debt well north of $1 billion.
Trump is compromised to the core, very realistically facing a potential bankruptcy.
Who does he owe the money to? Tell us, who do you owe the money to?
Mooch, who does he owe the money to?
Well, I mean, no one 100% knows, but this is why it's such a national security risk. His lead banker is Deutsche Bank. It's obviously a foreign national bank. It looks like people had a sign for him to get the credit in addition to his personal guarantee. Lord only knows. Are those oligarchs? Are those autocrats? Listen, he praises autocrats and dictators, and he denigrates democratically held leaders that won in democracy. So it's a very sordid tale. It gets worse every day. And what I don't understand is how there's still a crystallization of support for him. And so this is one of the things that I've tried to do, and Rick and I have talked about this. I don't want to demonize Mr. Trump because I want to reach his supporters. I want to just lay the facts out for them objectively, lay the facts out and offer them a olive branch because, if people want to attack me for being with them, I'm cool with it. I have a thick skin. But I want to get those people in the Midwest, people in those swing states are like, wow, I made a horrific mistake here, but I don't want to be ridiculed by anybody. So I'm frozen. I don't know necessarily what to do. And so we're out here with our hand raised, our hand out to reach out to those people, to beg them to reconsider where they're going with their vote. Please vote for the preservation of our democracy. Please vote for the institutions of the checks and balances in our system that have made the country great. We cannot afford another 4 years of Donald Trump. He cannot manage anything. He couldn't manage his business affairs. He can't manage the executive branch. And to quote the Lincoln Project, ladies and gentlemen, he's made the country sicker, weaker, and poorer. I don't know who came up with that line. I think it was you, Rick Wilson. God bless you for coming up with that line because that crystallizes for everybody what he is. One last point, Tara. His bumper sticker in 2016 was, I am a lowlife, but I'm your lowlife. Please vote for me. His 2020 bumper sticker is, no, I am just a lowlife, and I'm out for myself. And we got to get that message home, and we got to hammer it in those swing states so that we can send him to Mar-a-Lago on November 3rd.
That's a good point because trying to reach the people who may still be undecided, the small percentage of those out there, do you think I'm part Italian like you, and I have agita. Okay, I've had agita through this entire election, and tonight with the culminating with this debate, the first debate, I'm worried about how Joe Biden is going to handle the onslaught of Donald Trump's attacks. You spent time with him at all the debates in 2016. How low do you think Trump will go, and what could Biden possibly do to win over those people that you're talking about? And what could he do to get under Trump's skin?
Well, there's three simple things. I have that agita too, but I'm very confident about tonight because the vice president has exhibited a tremendous amount of discipline. He has not taken the Trump bait. The nicknames are barely sticking. He lets it roll off of him like it's water in a shower. And so there are three things he can do. He has to stay on message. He has to focus on the Rick Wilson mantra of weaker, sicker, and poorer. President has failed the country. You are worse off. The second thing he has to do when the president is attacking him, he has to display his paternos. He has to display his elder statesman figure in the society, which society sorely needs. And it'll just expose the sinister nature of President Trump. And the last thing he has to do, and we all know this, he's got to complete sentences. So the vice president just has to stay disciplined. Don't let the president derail him. It's going to be a deflection, an ad hominem attack. And let's put the gun on the bird. You destroyed the economy. You've destroyed us with the healthcare crisis, total mishandling of it. You are a liar, and you're probably in the pocket of autocrats, and you're a national security risk to the United States, and he's got to go. And I think if the vice president does that, we're going to win.
Yep, I say it's a debate between the hustler and the gentleman. Amen. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, it really is. Yeah, and look, the other thing is, I think Joe Biden's had enough time to observe Donald Trump at this point. The guys in 2016 in the Republican primary, they had this sort of thing in their head where they're like, well, I'll write a one-liner, I'll write a zinger, and that'll show Trump. And he would just roll right over that stuff. Biden, I think, is more of a scrapper than a lot of those folks. I mean, look, when Trump said that Ted Cruz's dad killed JFK and his wife was ugly, the response would have been to slap his teeth out. I don't think Joe Biden should take that shit tonight. If Donald Trump mentions Beau or Hunter Biden for 1 second, I think it ought to come right back to John Jr. and Eric. I think it ought to come right back 5 times as hard. Joe's got to be in that arena tonight with a lot of aggression against Donald Trump. He's got to hold that stage. Donald Trump is a showman. He's good at being on the camera. He knows where the camera's at. He knows where how the stage is set up. I think Biden is going to really have to punch that pretty hard. You know, Anthony, I have a question for you. This is a very small audience tonight. Only about 50 supporters of Trump will be in that room. Do you think he needs a bigger crowd to feed off of? That's my opinion, but I wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
Well, listen, absolutely. He feeds off that crowd. He gets stimulated by that crowd. Lord only knows what he'll be taking tonight because all of that projection about the drug testing and stuff like that, that's classic Trump projection. So he's probably going to be amped up. But he does need a bigger crowd. He needs a bigger crowd than the crowd he's going to be presented with. But here's something I think everybody knows, and this is something, frankly, that startled me. The remarkable insecurity of Donald Trump. He is a guy that is overcompensating and always over blustering. He's figured out that if he can steamroll good people will roll. And that's one of the more exceptional things about the Lincoln Project. I give all of you guys, Madrid, Smith, Wilson, Conway, the whole team, you showed the people of the United States do not roll in the face of evil. And so we have to just keep that message out there because what we know about demagogues, they are always astonished at how much they can get away with. They're always astonished about how big the lie is and how accepting people are of that big lie. And I think the Lincoln Project is doing an amazing job, frankly, of exposing that lie. You're using humor, you're using your wit and charm, and it's reaching people right where they feel in their hearts where they need to be. And this is why I'm very confident that we're going to beat the pants off this guy on November 3rd.
You know, that's encouraging. You know, I feel the same way. And the thing about, I agree with you, Rick, that Biden needs to be aggressive on this. He doesn't have to get in the mud. He can still, like I said, be the gentleman. But you can be a gentleman and still fight a fair fight. Because Donald Trump is going to throw everything at Joe Biden. And he really needs to just turn it back around on him. Like, don't take any shit. And that was the problem with a lot of other people. They just took it and didn't know how to be witty and throw it right back on Trump. Because to Anthony, to your point, Trump is so insecure And we know he's been exposed for what he is. He's a hustler, he's a fraud, he's a con man, and he's broke. And so, if Joe Biden comes back and says something like, if he tries to go after Hunter Biden for doing whatever, he could say, well, at least he paid his taxes. And he doesn't owe anyone $421 million. Or, you know what I mean? Like, there's things he could just come back.
100%. I just want to tell you, I've learned most of my sarcasm from Rick Wilson, and I was channeling my sarcasm tonight. I called for a weigh-in before the debate. That got a lot of likes. I said, why don't we weigh the guy? Because he says he's 244, and obviously he isn't. Yeah. And then when they send out the message that they had already won the debate, I was thinking, what would Rick Wilson do in this situation? And then I tweeted out, well, they must be on Moscow time, Rick. That's why they sent that out. So the point is, I just want to personally thank my sarcasm coach, Rick Wilson, for sharpening my edge during this campaign season.
I'm happy to help, Anthony.
I suspect that as a New Yorker, you didn't need Rick Wilson to help sharpen your wit at all.
No.
Well, it's good to have him. Let's put it that way. It's very good to have him.
Before we went live, we started to talk a little bit about the debates, and you started to tell a story about how you were at all three debates. Go ahead and tell that story about what happened in 2016.
Well, listen, I think the first debate, he was a little off balance. He was probably more nervous than he thought he was going to be. And then he got walloped. On October the 7th, he had the Access Hollywood tape come out. Our flash polling that weekend, he was down 13 points. Reince Priebus and Paul Ryan told him to drop out of the race. And so we rolled into Washington University. And Mr. Trump being Mr. Trump, he is formidable. So we can't underestimate him. What Mr. Trump was doing was he was doubling down. He got the Clinton accusers out to Washington University, and he held his own on the debate stage that night. And that turned the corner for him. So I would say this about him. He's formidable, but it's a different time. He is the polarizing candidate this time. Secretary Clinton, I like her personally, but honestly, she was the polarizing candidate last time.
Sure.
The vice president has a very high likability quotient, and I think that's going to be to his advantage over these three debates.
Anthony, I think that's right. He is a much more likable figure than Hillary Clinton. She always had there was always a sense of not quite connecting when it came to Hillary and audiences. And as smart as she was in many ways, Donald Trump played that game of, I may be the asshole, but I'm your asshole. I may be the dick, but I'm your dick. I may be the jerk, but I'm your jerk. And so I think that Biden has a much looser, more casual style than she did. And I think he'll have a little fun with it. And if he does, I think he's in a much better position.
No question. Totally agree, Rick.
All right.
Well,
so go ahead, Tara. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Rick. No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, how much do you think Trump is going to try tonight? I mean, is he going to try to lay out a vision? Is he going to try to sort of establish a track record or brag about his economic results? Or is he just going to go straight for the throat? I think he's feeling so punchy. I'm going to be surprised if he can hold it together long enough to deliver an affirmative message.
Well, I will tell everybody something. He's telling people he's not preparing, but trust me, he is preparing, because you saw Chris Christie, Governor Christie, and Mayor Giuliani in the press room with him over the weekend. They're the two guys that are preparing him. Those are the two guys that prepared him last time. And so he's going to come full on with all that bellicosity and all that bullying. He's obviously going to try to bring the vice president's family into it. And he is going to be tonight all about deflection. He doesn't have a great case. You can say the economy was okay prior to the pandemic, but it was his decision making that ruined the economy. And so he doesn't really have a great case. So his case is going to be that the vice president is a lesser individual. He's going to try to demonize him and dehumanize him. He was very effective at doing that with the other 17 candidates, guys. But I predict he won't be effective at doing that with the vice president because he's too likable.
Right.
Do you think, though, that they've set the bar so low for Biden that all he has to do is make it through without pissing his pants, and he's gonna win the debate? I mean, you got Fox News running around trying to tell people that Joe Biden is senile, Giuliani running around telling people that talking about Biden's on Adderall. It's remarkable to me that this is the tactic that they're taking.
Well, listen, that's effective with their base. But the question is, are they going to be able to expand that base? And I don't think so. I think one of the things that happens with the taxes, Stu Stevens and I were talking about this yesterday, Stuart Stevens, the taxes is another firewall. So if you're an undecided voter, and we all know that there's less of them this time than there was in 2015, but if you're an undecided voter, you see the taxes, you see all of this nefarious behavior, it's going to freeze you. See,
Your house
that's
isn't
the
burning
fire
down or
department
anything, is
coming
it?
to take Trump
No,
away.
they're coming to take me to Gitmo.
Right. I was like, who are they coming for? Are they coming
that
for
may
you
happen on
or
November
Mooch?
4th, okay? But I'll be in the cell block next to you. You and I can come up with
Anthony,
witticisms while we're on the
I'm going
chain
to do
gang.
I'll start. We'll do the shrimp grill on the beach at Gitmo first night.
But let me tell you something,
Guys,
Rick.
the debate
If I'm
is
going to
about
go
to start
down, I
in a
want to
few
go down
minutes.
with you and the Lincoln Project, okay? This has been, you guys are wonderful in a foxhole. I got to tell you, I've never been prouder to be affiliated with a group of people. So if we're going down, Rick, I want to be there with you in Gitmo. But I think we're going to get to the other side of this, and then we have to figure out what's going to happen to the Republican Party. Hopefully we can heal that party and expand the tent of that party. Otherwise, that's going to be aging white people buying My Pillows and catheters from Fox News ads. We don't want that to happen long term. We have to expand the tent of that party.
Right. You can't build a national political party based on 55 plus white guys without a college degree. You can't do it. You got to. That's not a party.
No,
That's
they'll
a
have plenty of
VFW
ventilators
hall.
at least.
So
they'll have plenty of
plenty of
ventilators.
ventilators.
Well, I left out the CPAC machines. So it's catheters, CPAC machines, and My Pillows. Not the right way to build a party, a majority party.
Sounds like a nursing home supply store. So, well, we are coming up on the debate here in a few minutes. Tara, do you want to walk us out?
Sure. If you are going to stay with us and watch the debate, feel free. But here's a little taste of what we've cooked up as a pre-debate preview.
This is going to be the great Trojan horse of all time. We have enough problems in this country. I believe in building safe zones. I believe in having other people pay for them. Now, the taxes are a very simple thing. First of all, I pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes. Many of our friends took bigger deductions.
Anthony.
Well, folks, we're going to do a few quick questions before we jump. It is just about debate time. And
lightning round.
So let's roll. Let's do a lightning round.
Okay. Mooch, what would be the most surprising thing Trump could possibly do tonight where you go, holy shit?
Well, the most surprising thing would be an indictment. If him and Bill Barr had cooked up an indictment of the vice president or President Obama, I think, even though people have talked about that, I think that would be a unbelievable shocker. I predict that won't happen, but that would be something I'd be worried about because we all know on this Zoom call, there's no depth to his depravity or how low he could go.
That's right.
That's for sure.
That's right. So what would be the worst question you could ask Donald Trump on the stage tonight, Anthony? What's the worst thing you could ask him? The thing that would rattle him more than anything else?
Why did so many good men and women turn on you? General Mattis, General Kelly, Olivia Troy, Miles Teller. Why did so many good men and women? What do they see about you that the American people need to know about you?
Solid.
Yeah, that's a good answer.
At the end of the day, he knows how depraved he is, and he knows how venal he is, and so I think you would catch him off guard with that, and you would learn a lot more about behind that orange mask and that spray tan. You'd learn a lot about what's going on in there.
I think that's right. Well, guys, we're gonna jump. The debate is now starting. Go, Tara. Go.
I have one last question. So,
Yep.
so Anthony, you're a successful guy. You've made a little money in your life. Have you ever written off $70,000 in hair care products as a business expense? Because you got the coif.
No, I mean, I've never done that. Okay, it's a $55 haircut. But let me just say this to you. He cuts his own hair, so he paid himself. You got to understand something. When he is coming out of the shower, he looks like Darth Vader after the helmet came off. You know what I'm saying? And so he's cutting his own hair. He does not want the Darth Vader with the helmet cut off picture on YouTube or Twitter. So he's doing the comb over. It starts in the back. He whips it this way. Then he combs it, and then he's got the Trisome hairspray. It's probably a tank of Trisome, like a scuba tank of Trisome hairspray going on up there. That is not an Italian chia pet like what I've got going here, Tara.
That's for sure.
But
That's
I
for
just
sure.
gotta tell you, I think Johnny McEntee and possibly Hope Hicks are the only two people have seen him with the Darth Vader helmet off. So I
Oh
don't
my
know where the
God.
70 grand went. That was obviously a fraudulent thing, unless you're allowed to pay yourself.
All right,
That's
folks, the
great.
debate is starting. We're going to be back with you after the debate with more exciting LPTV. Anthony Scaramucci, my good friend, thank you, brother, for being with us tonight.
Great to be
Tara,
here, guys.
love you. We will
Let's
see you
win.
back here as soon as this crazy shit show ends. Thanks,
Let's win.
folks.
Let's win. Let's
Let's
win.
win it.
V is for victory. Let's win.
Good evening from the Health Education campus of Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic. I'm Chris Wallace of Fox News, and I welcome you to the first of the 2020 presidential debates between President Donald J. Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden. This debate is sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates. The commission has designed the format, 6 roughly 15-minute segments with 2-minute answers from each candidate to the first question, then open discussion for the rest of each segment. Both campaigns have agreed to these rules. For the record, I decided the topics and the questions in each topic. I can assure you, none of the questions has been shared with the commission or the 2 candidates. This debate is being conducted under health and safety protocols designed by the Cleveland Clinic, which is serving as the health security advisor to the commission for all 4 debates. As a precaution, both campaigns have agreed the candidates will not shake hands at the beginning of tonight's debate. The audience here in the hall has promised to remain silent. No cheers, no boos or other interruptions, so we, and more importantly you, can focus on what the candidates have to say. No noise except right now, as we welcome the Republican nominee, President Trump, and the Democratic nominee, Vice President Biden.
How you doing, man? How are you? I'm well.
Gentlemen, a lot of people have been waiting for this night, so let's get going. Our first subject is the Supreme Court. President Trump, you nominated Amy Coney Barrett over the weekend to succeed the late Ruth Bader Ginsburg on the court. You say the Constitution is clear about your obligation and the Senate's to consider a nominee to the court. Vice President Biden, you say that this is an effort by the president and Republicans to jam through an appointment and what you call an abuse of power. My first question to both of you tonight: why are you right in the argument you make and your opponent wrong? And where do you think a Justice Barrett would take the court? President Trump, in this first segment, you go first, 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chris. I will tell you very simply, we won the election. Elections have consequences. We have the Senate, we have the White House, and we have a phenomenal nominee, respected by all, top academic, good in every way, In fact, some of her biggest endorsers are very liberal people from Notre Dame and other places. So I think she's going to be fantastic. We have plenty of time, even if we did it after the election itself. I have a lot of time after the election, as you know. So I think that she will be outstanding. She's going to be as good as anybody that has served on that court. We really feel that. We have a professor at Notre Dame, highly respected by all, said she's the single greatest student he's ever had. He's been a professor for a long time at a great school. And we won the election, and therefore we have the right to choose her. And very few people knowingly would say otherwise. And by the way, the Democrats, they wouldn't even think about not doing it. If they had, the only difference is they'd try and do it faster. There's no way they would give it up. They had Merrick Garland, but the problem is they didn't have the election, so they were stopped. And probably that would happen in reverse also. Definitely would happen in reverse. So we won the election, and we have the right to do it, Chris.
President Trump, thank you. Same question to you, Vice President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
Well, first of all, thank you for doing this, and looking forward to this, Mr. President.
Thank you, Joe.
The American people have a right to have a say in who the Supreme Court nominee is. And that say occurs when they vote for United States senators and when they vote for the President of the United States. They're not going to get that chance now because we're in the middle of an election already. The election has already started. Tens of thousands of people have already voted. And so the thing that should happen is we should wait. We should wait and see what the outcome of this election is, because that's the only way the American people get to express their view is by who they elect as president and who they elect as vice president. Now, what's at stake here is the president's made it clear he wants to get rid of the Affordable Care Act. He's been running on that, he ran on that, and he's been governing on that. He's in the Supreme Court right now trying to get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which will strip 20 million people from having insurance, health insurance now, if it goes into court. And the justice, and I'm not opposed to the justice, she seems like a very fine person. But she's written before she went on the bench, which is her right, that she thinks that the Affordable Care Act is not constitutional. The other thing that's on the court, and if it's struck down, what happens? Women's rights are fundamentally changed. Once again, a woman could be pay more money because she has a pre-existing condition of pregnancy. They were able to charge a woman more for the same exact procedure a man gets. And that ended when we, in fact, passed the Affordable Care Act. And there's 100 million people who have pre-existing conditions, and they'll be taken away as well. Those pre-existing conditions, the insurance companies are going to love this. And so it's just not appropriate to do this before this election. If he wins the election and the Senate is Democrat or Republican, then he goes forward. If not, we should wait until February.
All right. There aren't 100 million people with pre-existing conditions. As far as the say is concerned, the people already had their say. Okay, Justice Ginsburg said very powerfully, very strongly, at some point, 10 years ago or so, she said a president and the Senate is elected for a period of time, but a president's elected for 4 years. We're not elected for 3 years. I'm not elected for 3 years. So we have the Senate, we have a president.
He's elected to the next
during
election.
that period of time, we have an opening. I'm not elected for 3 years. I'm elected for 4 years. And the 100 million people, Joe, the 100 million people is totally wrong. I don't know where you got that number. The bigger problem that you have is that you're going to extinguish 180 million people with their private health care that they're very happy with.
That's simply not true.
Well, you're certainly going to socialist. You're going to socialist medicine.
We're now into, gentlemen, we're now into open discussion.
Open discussion.
Open discussion. Yes, I agree. Go ahead, Vice President.
Number one, he knows that what I proposed. What I proposed is that we expand Obamacare and we increase it. We do not wipe any, and one of the big debates we had with 23 of my colleagues trying to win the nomination that I won were saying that Biden wanted to allow people to have private insurance still. They can. They do. They will under my proposal.
It's not what you've said,
but
and it's not what your party has said.
That is simply
your party
a lie.
Doesn't say it. Your party wants to go socialist medicine.
My party is
and
me.
socialist
right
healthcare.
Now, I am
and
the
they're going to dominate
party.
you, Joe. You know that.
I am the Democratic Party right now. The platform of the
Not according
Democratic
to
Party
Harris.
is what I, in fact, approved of. What I approved of. Now, here's the deal. The deal is that it's going to wipe out pre-existing conditions. And by the way, the 200,000 people that have died on his watch, how many of those have survived? Well, there's 7 million people that contracted COVID. What does it mean for them going forward if you strike down the Affordable Care Act?
Joe, you've had 308,000 military people dying because you couldn't provide them proper health care in the military. So don't tell me about this.
I'm happy to talk about this.
And if you were here, it wouldn't be 200, it would be 2 million people because you were very late on the draw. You didn't want me to ban China, which was heavily infected. You didn't want me to ban
gentlemen,
Europe, which was heavily infected. You would have been much later, Joe.
Mr. President,
much later.
Mr. President.
You're talking about 2 million people.
Mr. President, as the moderator, we are going to talk about COVID in the next segment, but go ahead.
Let me finish. The point is that the president also is opposed to Roe v. Wade. That's on the ballot as well in the court. And so that's also at stake right now. And so the election is already
You don't know it's
begun.
on the ballot. Why is it on the ballot?
Because
why is it on the ballot? It's not on the ballot.
It's on the ballot in the court.
I don't think so.
In the court. Well,
there's nothing happening there.
Donald, would you just be quiet for a minute?
And you don't know her view on Roe v. Wade. You don't know her view.
Well, all right. Let's talk. We got a lot to unpack here, gentlemen. We got a lot of time. So on health care, and then we'll come back to Roe v. Wade.
All right.
Mr. President, the Supreme Court will hear a case a week after the election in which the Trump administration, along with 18 state attorneys general, are seeking to overturn Obamacare, to end Obamacare. You have spent the last...
Because they want to give good health care.
If I may ask my question, sir.
Good health care.
Over the last 4 years, you have promised to repeal and replace Obamacare, but you have never in these 4 years come up with a plan, a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare.
Of course I have.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate.
I'm going to give you an opportunity.
I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of
Obamacare.
That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir,
Chris, that was the worst part of Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like you
and we will protect people with
President, I'm the moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question. You, in the course of these 4 years, have never come up with a comprehensive plan to replace Obamacare, and just this last Thursday, you signed a largely symbolic executive order to protect people with pre-existing conditions 5 days before this debate. So my question, sir, is what is the Trump health care plan?
Fine. Well, first of all, I guess I'm debating you, not him, but that's okay. I'm not surprised. Let me just tell you something, that there's nothing symbolic. I'm cutting drug prices. I'm going with favored nations, which no president has the courage to do because you're going against Big Pharma. Drug prices will be coming down 80 or 90%. You could have done it during your 47-year period in government, but you didn't do it. Nobody's done it. So we're cutting health care. All of the things that we've done, insulin, I give you an example, insulin, it was destroying families, destroying people. The cost, I'm getting it for so cheap. It's like water, you want to know the truth. So cheap. Take a look at all of the drugs what we're doing, prescription drug prices. We're going to allow our governors now to go to other countries to buy drugs because they pay just a tiny fraction.
As I say, this is open discussion.
No,
let me ask you about,
this is big stuff.
Sir, you'll be happy. I'm about to pick up on one of your points to ask the Vice President, which is he points out that you would like to add a public option to Obamacare, and the argument that he makes and other Republicans make is that that is going to end private insurance.
It is
and
not.
Well, if I can ask you the question, it will
not
end.
What your party says, by the way.
It will end private insurance and create a government takeover of health care.
It does not. It's only for those people who are so poor they qualify for Medicaid. They can get that free in most states, except governors who want to deny people who are poor Medicaid. Anyone who qualifies for Medicare Medicaid would automatically be enrolled in the public option. The vast majority of the American people would still not be in that option, number one.
Joe, you agreed with Bernie Sanders, who's far left, on the manifesto, we call it, and that gives you socialized medicine.
Look, hey,
Are you saying
I'm not going to listen
agree?
to him. The fact of the matter is, I beat Bernie Sanders.
Not by much.
I beat him a whole hell of a lot. I'm here standing facing you, old buddy.
Pocahontas would have left 2 days early. You would have lost every primary.
All he knows how to do is
Super Tuesday. You got
Look,
very lucky.
here's the deal. I got very lucky. I'm going to get very lucky tonight as well. And tonight I'm going to make sure, because here's the deal. Here's the deal. The fact is that everything he's saying so far is simply a lie. I'm not here to call out his lies. Everybody knows he's a liar.
But you
I just want to make sure.
Joe, you're the liar.
I want to make sure.
You graduated last in your class, not first in your class.
I want to make sure.
Mr. President, can you let him finish, sir?
No, he doesn't know how to do that. He has,
You'd be surprised.
You pick
You'd be surprised.
the
Go ahead,
wrong
Joe.
guy, the wrong
Joe,
night
go.
at the wrong time.
Listen, you agreed with
Here's the
Bernie
deal.
Sanders to the
The
manifesto.
whole idea.
Let him.
There is no manifesto, number
Please
one.
let him speak, Mr.
Number
President.
two.
You just lost the left.
Number two.
You just lost the left. You agreed with Bernie Sanders on a plan
folks,
absolutely agreed
folks, do you have any
and under that
idea
plan,
what
you
this
have
clown's
socialized,
doing?
They call it
Mr.
Do you
Medicare.
have any do?
Socialized medicine.
Mr.
Well,
President.
I tell you what, he is not for any help for people needing health care. Because he, in fact, already has cost 10 million people their health care that they had from their employers because of his recession. Number one. Number two, there are 20 million people getting health care through Obamacare now that he wants to take it away. He won't ever look you in the eye and say that's what he wants to do. Take it away.
No, I want to give them better health care at a much lower price because
by the way,
Obamacare
he doesn't
is
know
no
how.
good.
He doesn't know how
I've
to do
already
that.
fixed it.
He has never
I've
offered
already
a plan.
fixed it to an extent.
He has never done a
as you
single
might
thing.
know, but probably don't.
Gentlemen, you realize if you're both speaking at the same time,
and it's too expensive.
Let the president go ahead, sir.
Obamacare is no good. We made it better, and I had a choice to make very early on. We took away the individual mandate. We guarantee pre-existing conditions, but took away the individual mandate. Listen, this is the way it is. And that destroyed, they shouldn't even call it Obamacare. Then I had a choice to make. Do I let my people run it really well or badly? Yeah. If I run it badly, they'll probably blame him, but they'll blame me. But more importantly, I want to help people, okay? I said, you got to run it so well.
That's what
and I just had a meeting with them. They said, the problem is no matter how well you run Obamacare, it's a disaster. It's too expensive. Okay. Premiums are too high, and it doesn't work. So we do want to get rid of it. Chris, we want to get rid of it.
I understand it, sir, but I have to give you roughly equal time. Good. Please let the vice president talk.
Good.
He has no plan for health care.
Of course we do.
He sends out wishful thinking. He has executive orders that have no power. He hasn't lowered drug costs for anybody. He's been promising a health care plan since he got elected. He has none, like almost everything else he talks about. He does not have a plan. He doesn't have a plan. And the fact is, this man doesn't know what he's talking about.
All right, I have one final question for you,
sure.
Mr. Vice President. If Senate Republicans, we were talking originally about the Supreme Court here, if Senate Republicans go ahead and confirm Justice Barrett, there has been talk about ending the filibuster or even packing the court, adding to the 9 justices there. You call this a distraction by the president, but in fact it wasn't brought up by the president. It was brought up by some of your Democratic colleagues in the Congress. So my question to you is, you have refused in the past to talk about it. Are you willing to tell the American people tonight whether or not you will support either ending the filibuster or packing the court?
Whatever position I take on that, that'll become the issue. The issue is the American people should speak. You should go out and vote. You're in voting now. Vote and let your senators know how strongly you feel. Vote now.
Are you going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know you're a senator.
I'm
not going to answer the question
because
the question is
radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Who's
on your list?
Right, gentlemen, I think
this is so unprecedented.
He's going to pack the court.
I'm not going to give a list. We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really a productive segment, wasn't it? Keep yapping, man.
The people understand, Joe.
They sure
47 years you've done nothing. They understand.
All right. The second subject is COVID-19, which is an awfully serious subject, so let's try to be serious about it. We have had more than 7 million cases of coronavirus in the United States, and more than 200,000 people have died. Even after we produce a vaccine, experts say that it could be months or even years before we come back to anything approaching normal. My question for both of you is, based on what you have said and done so far and what you have said you would do starting in 2021, why should the American people trust you more than your opponent to deal with this public health crisis going forward? In this case, the question goes to you first, sir. 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Good luck. 200,000 dead. As you said, over 7 million infected in the United States. We, in fact, have 4% of the world's population, 20% of the deaths. 40,000 people a day are contracting COVID. In addition to that, about between 750 and 1,000 people a day are dying. When he was presented with that number, he said, it is what it is. Well, it is what it is because you are who you are. That's why it is. The president has no plan. He hasn't laid out anything. He knew all the way back in February how serious this crisis was. He knew it was a deadly disease. What did he do? He's on tape as acknowledging he knew it. He said he didn't tell us or give people a warning of it because he didn't want to panic the American people. You don't panic. He panicked. In addition to that, what did he do? He went in and he we were insisting that the Chinese, the people we had on the ground in China should be able to go to Wuhan and determine for themselves how dangerous this was. He did not even ask Xi to do that. He told us what a great job Xi was doing. He said we owe him a debt of gratitude for being so transparent with us. And what did he do then? He then did nothing. He waited and waited and waited. He still doesn't have a plan. I laid out back in March exactly what we should be doing. And I laid out again in July what we should be doing. We should be providing all the protective gear possible. We should be providing the money the House has passed in order to be able to go out and get people the help they need to keep their businesses open schools that cost a lot of money. You should get out of your bunker and get out of the sand trap and get in your golf course and go in the Oval Office and bring together the Democrats and Republicans and fund what needs to be done now to save lives.
So if we would have listened to you...
You have 2 minutes, sir.
If we would have listened to you, the country would have been left wide open. Millions of people would have died, not 200,000, and one person is too much. It's China's fault. It should have never happened. They stopped it from going in, but it was China's fault. And by the way, when you talk about numbers, you don't know how many people died in China. You don't know how many people died in Russia. You don't know how many people died in India. They don't exactly give you a straight count, just so you understand. But if you look at what we've done, I closed it, and you said he's xenophobic. He's a racist, and he's xenophobic because you didn't think I should have closed our country.
Wait a minute. It says 2 minutes.
You didn't think we should have closed our country because you thought it was terrible. You wouldn't have closed it for another 2 months. By my doing it early, in fact, Dr. Fauci said, President Trump saved thousands of lives. Many of your Democrat governors said, President Trump did a phenomenal job. We worked with the governor. Oh, really? Go take a look. The governors said I did a phenomenal job. Most of them said that. In fact, people that would not be necessarily on my side said that. President Trump did a phenomenal job. We did. We got the gowns. We got the masks. We made the ventilators. You wouldn't have made ventilators. And now we're weeks away from a vaccine. We're doing therapeutics already. Fewer people are dying when they get sick. Far fewer people are dying. We've done a great job. The only thing I haven't done a good job, and that's because of the fake news. No matter what you say to them, they give you bad press on it. It's just fake news. They give you good press. They give me bad press because that's the way it is, unfortunately. But let me just tell you something. I don't care. I've gotten used to it. But I'll tell you, Joe, you could never have done the job that we did. You don't have it in your blood. You could have never done that job.
I know how to do the job. I know how to get the job
Well, you didn't do very well in swine flu. H1N1, you were a disaster. Your own chief of staff said you were a disaster.
14,000 people died, not 200,000. There was no economic recession.
Sir, you made a
there was
no recession.
You made a point. Let him answer.
And there was no one. We didn't shut down the economy. This is his economy he shut down. The reason it's shut down is because, look, you folks at home, how many of you got up this morning and had an empty chair at the kitchen table because someone died of COVID? How many of you were in a situation where you lost your mom or dad and you couldn't even speak to them? You had a nurse holding a phone up so you could, in fact, say goodbye.
You would have lost far more people. Far more people.
And,
you would have been
and by the way, his own CDC director says we could lose as many as another 200,000 people between now and the end of the year. And he held up. He said, if we just wear a mask, we can save half those numbers. Just a mask. And by the way, in terms of the whole notion of a vaccine, we're for a vaccine, but I don't trust him at all, nor do you. I know you don't. What we trust is a scientist.
You don't trust Dr. Fauci. Johnson, Pfizer?
Okay,
by the way,
gentlemen, let me move on to questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives.
God.
It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slawi?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available. Just like
he said it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after that.
When it's generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up. Logistically, they're all set up. We have our military that delivers soldiers, and they can do 200,000 a day. They're going to be delivering.
This is the same man
it's
who
all
told
set
you
up.
by Easter this would be gone away. By the warm weather, it'd be gone. Miraculous, like a miracle. And by the way, maybe you could inject some bleach in your arm, and that would take care of it. This is the same man.
That was said sarcastically, you know that. That was said sarcastically.
And so here's the deal. This man is talking about a vaccine. Every serious company is talking about maybe having a vaccine done by the end of the year. But the distribution of that vaccine will not occur until sometime beginning or the middle of next year to get it out, if we get the vaccine. And pray God we will. Pray God we will.
Mr. Vice President, I want to pick up, though.
You'll have the vaccine sooner
I want to pick up on this question, though. You say the public can trust the scientists, but they can't trust President Trump. In fact, you said that again tonight. Your running mate, Senator Harris, goes further, saying the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed. Given the fact that polls already show that people are concerned about the vaccine and are reluctant to take it, are you and your running mate, Senator Harris, contributing to that fear?
No more than the question you just asked him. You pointed out. He puts pressure and disagrees with his own scientists.
But you're saying
Everybody
you can't,
knows.
or Senator Harris is saying you can't trust the scientists.
No, you can trust the scientists. She didn't say that. You can't trust
She said the public health experts, quote, will be muzzled, will be suppressed.
Well, that's what he's going to try to do. But there's millions of scientists, there's thousands of scientists out there, like here at this great hospital, that don't work for him. Their job doesn't depend on him. That's not, they're the people, and by the way.
I spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way.
They will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
Did you use the word smart? So you said you went to Delaware State, but you forgot the name of your college. You didn't go to Delaware State. You graduated either the lowest or almost the lowest in your class. Don't ever use the word smart with me. Don't ever use that word.
Oh, give me a break.
Because you know what? There's nothing smart about you, Joe. 47 years you've done nothing.
Let's have this debate.
And if you would have had, let me just tell you something, Joe. No, if you would have had the charge of what I was put through, I had to close the greatest economy in the history of our country. And by the way, now it's being built again.
We're going to get to the economy in the next segment, sir.
Okay.
It's going up fast.
Okay. When it comes to how the virus has been handled so far, the two of you have taken very different approaches, and this is going to affect how the virus is handled going forward by whichever of you ends up becoming the next president. I want to quickly go through several of those. Reopenings. Vice President Biden, you have been much more reluctant than President Trump about reopening the economy and schools. Why, sir?
Because he doesn't have a plan. If I were running, I know what the plan is. You've got to provide these businesses the ability to have the money to be able to reopen with the PPE as well as with the sanitation they need. You have to provide them plastic.
Tell that to Nancy Pelosi.
Well, he's just shush for a minute.
Tell it to Nancy Pelosi. And Schumer,
by the way,
Chuck.
Nancy Pelosi and Schumer, they have a plan. He won't even meet with them. The Republicans won't meet with the Senate. And he sits on his golf course. And I mean, literally, think about it.
You probably play more than I do, Joe.
What about this question of reopenings and the fact?
Well, he wants to shut down this country. And I want to keep it open. And we did a great thing by shutting it down. Wait a minute, Joe. Let me shut you down for a second, Joe, just for 1 second. He wants to shut down the country. We just went through it. We had to because we didn't know anything about the disease. Now we found that elderly people with heart problems and diabetes and different problems are very, very vulnerable. We learned a lot. Young children aren't. Even younger people aren't. We've learned a lot. But he wants to shut it down. More people will be hurt by continuing. If you look at Pennsylvania, if you look at certain states that have been shut down, they have Democrat governors all. One of the reasons they're shut down is because they want to keep it shut down until after the election on November 3rd.
I want to move on to another
because
subject.
It's a political
Those
states are not doing well that are shut down right now.
Respond to that.
President Trump, you have begun to increasingly question the effectiveness of masks as a disease preventer. And in fact, recently you have cited the issue of waiters touching their masks and touching plates. Are you questioning
No, I think
the
masks
efficacy
are okay.
of
You have to
masks?
understand, if you look, I mean, I have a mask right here. I put a mask on, when I think I need it. Tonight, as an example, everybody's had a test, and you've had social distancing and all of the things that you have to. But I wear masks when needed. When needed, I wear masks.
Okay, let me ask.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen. I will say this.
Vice President Biden, go ahead, sir.
Look, the way to open businesses is give them the wherewithal to be able to open. We provided money.
But I was asking you, sir, about masks.
Well, masks make a big difference. His own head of the CDC said if we just wore masks between now, everybody wore masks in social distance between now and January, we'd probably save up to 100,000 lives. It matters.
And they've also said the opposite. They've also said
no serious person said the opposite.
Look at Dr. Fauci. Dr. Fauci said the opposite.
He did not say the opposite.
We got a little bit more than a minute left in this segment.
Masks are not good. Then he changed his mind. He said masks are good. I'm okay with masks.
I want to ask you both about one last subject, because your different approaches has even affected the way that you have campaigned. President Trump, you're holding large rallies with crowds packed together, thousands of people. Outside, yes, sir, agreed. Vice President Biden, you are holding much smaller events with...
Because nobody will show up.
People with...
Well, it's true. Nobody shows up to his rallies.
All right. In any case, why you holding the big rallies? Why you not? You go first, sir.
Because people want to hear what I have to say. I mean,
but are you not worried about it spreading
as a president, and I'll have 35,000 people show up at airports. We use airports.
Are you not worried about the disease
We have a lot of
issue,
people.
Sir?
Well, so far, we have had no problem whatsoever. It's outside. That's a big difference, according to the experts. And we do them outside. We have tremendous crowds, as you see. I mean, and literally on 24 hours' notice. And Joe does the circles and has 3 people someplace.
Okay.
By the way, did you see one of the last big rallies he had? And a reporter came up to him to ask him a question. He said, no, stand back. Put on your mask. Put on a mask. Have you been tested? I'm way far away from those other people. That's what he said. I'm going to be okay. He's not worried about you. He's not worried about the people out there breathing in one another.
We've had no negative effect.
No negative effect.
We've had no negative effect. And we've had 35,000, 40,000 people at these rallies.
Just quickly finish up, because I want to move on to our next.
Yes, I would. He's been totally irresponsible the way in which he has handled the social distancing and people wearing masks, basically encouraged them not to.
All right.
He's a fool on this.
If you could get the crowds, you would have done the same thing. But you can't. Nobody cares.
Gentlemen, can we move on to the economy? Yes. The economy is, I think it's fair to say, recovering faster than expected from the shutdown.
Much faster.
In the second quarter, the unemployment rate fell to 8.4% last month. The Federal Reserve says the hit to growth, which is going to be there, is not going to be nearly as big as they had expected. President Trump, you say we are in a V-shaped recovery. Vice President Biden, you say it's more of a K-shape. What difference does that mean to the American people in terms of the economy? President Trump, in this segment, you go first.
So we built the greatest economy in history. We closed it down because of the China plague. When the plague came in, we closed it down, which was very hard psychologically to do. He didn't think we should close it down, and he was wrong. And again, 2 million people would be dead now. Instead of still 204,000 people is too much. One person is too much. Should have never happened from China. But what happened is we closed it down, and now we're reopening, and we're doing record business. We had 10.4 million people in a 4-month period that we've put back into the workforce. That's a record the likes of which nobody's ever seen before. And he wants to close down he will shut it down again. He will destroy this country. You know, a lot of people, between drugs and alcohol and depression, when you start shutting it down, you take a look at what's happening in some of your Democrat-run states where they have these tough shutdowns. And I'm telling you, it's because they don't want to open it. One of them came out last week. You saw that. Oh, we're going to open up on November 9th. Why November 9th? Because it's after the election. They think they're hurting us by keeping them closed. They're hurting people. People know what to do. They can social distance. They can wash their hands. They can wear masks. They can do whatever they want. But they got to open these states up. When you look at North Carolina, when you look, and these governors are under siege, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and a couple of others, you got to open these states up. It's not fair. You're talking about almost, it's like being in prison. And you look at what's going on with divorce, look at what's going on with alcoholism and drugs. It's a very, very sad thing. And he'll close down the whole country. This guy will close down the whole country and destroy our country. Our country is coming back incredibly well, setting records as it does it. We don't need somebody to come in and say, let's shut it down.
All right. Your 2 minutes, sir. We're now moved to you. As I said, posing the question, the president says it's a V-shaped recovery. You say it's a K-shaped recovery. What's the difference?
The difference is millionaires and billionaires like him in the middle of the COVID crisis have done very well. Billionaires have made another $300 billion because of his profligate tax proposal, and he only focused on the market. But you folks at home, you folks living in Scranton and Claymont and all the small towns and working class towns in America, how well are you doing? This guy paid a total of $750 in taxes.
Sir, wait, no, sir, it's his
wrong statement.
Yeah, I understand. You've agreed to the 2 minutes, so please let him have it.
Do I get my time back? The fact is that he has, in fact, worked on this in a way that he's going to be the first president of the United States to leave office having fewer jobs in his administration than when he became president. Fewer jobs than when he became president. First one in American history. Secondly, the people who have lost their jobs are those people who have been on the front lines, those people who have been saving our lives, those people who have been out there dying, people who've been putting themselves in the way to make sure that we could all try to make it. And the idea that he is insisting that we go forward and open when you have almost half the states in America with a significant increase in COVID deaths and COVID cases in the United States of America. And he wants to open it up more. Why does he want to open it up? Why doesn't he take care of the American? You can't fix the economy until you fix the COVID crisis. And he has no intention of doing anything about making it better for you all at home in terms of your health and your safety. Schools, why aren't schools open? Because it costs a lot of money to open them safely. You know, they were going to give, his administration was going to give the teachers and school students masks. And then they decided, no, couldn't do that because it's not a national emergency, not a national emergency. They've done nothing to help small businesses, nothing. They're closing. 1 in 6 is now gone. He ought to get on the job and take care of the needs of the American people so we can open safely.
All right, your time is up, sir. Well, we are going to get to...
I have to respond to that.
Well, you both had 2 minutes, sir.
Excuse me, he made a statement.
So did you.
People want their schools, people want their schools open. They don't want to be shut down. They don't want their state shut down. They want their restaurants. I look at New York. It's so sad what's happening in New York. It's almost like a ghost town. And I'm not sure it can ever recover what they've done in New York. People want their places open. They want to get back to their lives. They'll be careful, but they want their schools open. I'm the one that brought back football. By the way, I brought back Big Ten football. It was me, and I'm very happy to do it. And the people of Ohio are very proud of me. And you know how I found out? When he took
Gentlemen,
the phony
we're going to
ad.
get to your economic plans going forward in a moment. But first, Mr. President, as you well know, there's a new report that in 2016, the year you were elected president, and 2017, your first year as president, that you paid $750 a year in federal income tax each of those years. I know that you pay a lot of other taxes, but I'm asking you the specific question. Is it true that you paid $750 in federal income taxes each of those 2 years?
I paid millions of dollars in taxes, millions of dollars of income tax. And let me just tell you, there was a story in one of the papers. I paid $38 million 1 year. I paid $27 million
Show us your tax
one year.
returns.
I went You'll see it as soon as it's finished. You'll see it. You know, if you want to go to the Board of Elections. There's a 118-page or so report that says everything I have, every bank I have, I'm totally under-leveraged because the assets are extremely good. And we have I built a great company.
I'm asking you a specific question, which is...
Let me tell you.
I understand all of that. I understand all of that. No, Mr. President,
Go ahead.
I'm asking you a question. Will you tell us how much you paid in federal income taxes in 2016 and 2017?
Millions of dollars.
You paid millions of dollars?
Millions of dollars,
So
yes.
not 750?
Millions of dollars, and you'll get to see it. And you'll get to see it. But let me just tell you, Chris, let me just tell you something, that it was the tax laws. I don't want to pay tax. Before I came here, I was a private developer. I was a private business people. Like every other private person, unless they're stupid, they go through the laws, and that's what it is. He passed a tax bill that gave us all these privileges for depreciation and for tax credits. We build a building and we get tax credits, like the hotel on Pennsylvania Avenue. You get a massive, which, by the way, was given to me by the Obama administration, if you can believe that. Now, the man got fired right after that happened. But
Vice President Biden, you want to respond?
Yeah, I do want to respond. Look, the tax code that made him, put him in a position that he pays less tax than a school teacher makes on the money a school teacher makes is because of him he says he's smart because he can take advantage of the tax code. And he does take advantage of the tax code. That's why I'm going to eliminate the Trump tax cuts. And I'm going to eliminate those tax cuts and make sure that we invest in the people who, in fact, need the help. People out there need help.
But why didn't you do it over the last 25 years?
Because you weren't president. Because you weren't president screwing things up.
You were a senator. And
You're
by
the
way,
worst
you were
president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe. I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe. We've done things that you never even thought of doing, including fixing the broken military that you gave me, including taking care of your vets.
Mr. President, we're talking about the economy. I'd like to ask you about your plans going forward because, Mr. Vice President, your economic plan, if you were to be elected president, focuses a lot on big government, big taxes, big spending. I want to focus first on the taxes. You propose more than $4 trillion over a decade in new taxes on individuals making more than $400,000 a year and on corporations. President Trump says that that kind of an increase in taxes is going to hurt the economy as it's just coming out of a recession.
Well, just take a look at what is the analysis done by Wall Street firms. Points out that my economic plan would create 7 million more jobs than his in 4 years, number one. And number two, it would create an additional $1 trillion in economic growth because it would be about buying American. That we're going to make, the federal government spend $600 billion a year on everything from ships to steel to buildings and the like. And under my proposal, we're going to make sure that every penny of that has to be made by a company.
But respectfully, sir, I'm talking about taxes, not spending.
By the way, I'm going to eliminate a significant number of the tax. I'm going to make the corporate tax 28%. It shouldn't be 21%. You have 91 companies, in the Fortune 500 who don't pay a single penny in tax, making billions of dollars.
Why didn't you do it before when you were vice president with Obama?
Because you, in fact, passed that. That was your tax proposal.
I got it done. And you know what happened?
Yeah, you got it done.
Our economy boomed like it's never boomed.
The economy is busted. Let me finish.
Mr. President, let me pick up on that. You would continue your free market approach, lower taxes, more deregulation, correct?
Not lower taxes for American people.
Excuse me.
But in Obama's, you talk about the economy booming, it turns out that in Obama's final 3 years as president, more jobs were created, 1.5 million more jobs than in the first 3 years of your presidency.
They had the slowest recovery economic recovery since 1929. It was the slowest recovery. Also, they took over something that was down here. All you had to do is turn on the lights and you pick up a lot. But they had the slowest economic recovery since 1929. Let me tell you about the stock market. When the stock market goes up, that means jobs. It also means 401ks. If you got in, if you ever became president with your ideas, you want to terminate my taxes, I'll tell you what, you'll lose half of the companies that have poured in here will leave, and plenty
Half
of companies that are already here, they'll leave for other places. They will leave, and you will have a depression the likes of which you've never seen.
Look, we inherited the worst recession short of a depression in American history. I was asked to bring it back. We were able to have an economic recovery that created the jobs you're talking about. We handed him a booming economy. He blew it.
It wasn't
booming.
Blew it. It wasn't booming. It was the weakest recovery since 1929.
Is it fair to say he blew it when fact, when there was record low unemployment before COVID?
Yeah, but because what he did, even before COVID, manufacturing went in the hole. Manufacturing went in the hole.
Excuse me, Chris. Wait.
Number two.
Chris.
Number three.
They said it would take. No, you're on number two.
No.
Chris. They said it would take a miracle to bring back manufacturing. I brought back 700,000 jobs. They brought back nothing. They gave up on manufacturing. Part of my standard fare.
I'm the guy that brought back the automobile industry.
All right, let him.
We brought back. I was asked to bring back Chrysler and General Motors. We brought them back right here in the state of Ohio and Michigan. He blew it. They're gone. He blew it. And in fact, they're going.
Ohio had the best year it's ever had last year. Michigan had the best year they've ever had.
That is not
Many
true.
car companies came in from Germany, from Japan, went to Michigan, went to Ohio.
They're not having.
And they didn't come in with you.
Mr. Vice President, go ahead.
And so you take a look at what he's actually done. He's done very little. His trade deals are the same way. He talks about these great trade deals. You know, he talks about the art of the deal. China's perfected the art of the steal. We have a higher deficit with China now than we did before. We have the highest trade deficit with Mexico.
China ate your lunch, down 18%. China ate your lunch, Joe, and no wonder your son goes in and he takes out billions of dollars. Takes out billions of dollars to manage. He makes millions of dollars. And also, while we're at it, why is it, just out of curiosity, the mayor of Moscow's wife gave your son $3.5 million. What did he do to deserve it? What did he do with Burisma to deserve $183,000?
None of that is true. Let him answer.
None of that is true.
Oh, really? He didn't get $3.5 million?
Mr. President,
Mr.
President, please.
Totally discredited. Totally discredited. And by the way,
well, wait, he didn't get $3.5 million, Joe?
Mr. Vice,
he got $3.5 million.
That is not true.
Oh, really?
Mr. President, it's an open discussion, please.
It's a fact.
Well, you have raised an issue. Let the Vice President answer.
Discredited.
Did Burisma pay him $183,000 a month with no experience in energy?
Mr. President,
my son did nothing wrong at Burisma.
I think he did.
Mr. President, let him answer.
He doesn't want to let me answer because he knows I have the truth. His position has been totally, thoroughly discredited.
By who? The media?
By everybody. Well, by the media, by our allies, by the World Bank, by everyone has discredited. Matter of fact, even the people who testified under oath.
So let me ask you this.
No, go ahead, Mr. I'm listening to you.
He
got $3.5 million from Moscow.
He testified under oath in his administration, said, I did my job and I did it very well.
Oh, really?
I did it
I'd
honorably.
like to know who they are.
Well, I'll give you the list of the people who testified.
No, go ahead, sir.
Sure, you've already fired most of them because they did a good job.
Some people don't do a good job. With you,
go ahead. Wait a minute. You get the final word, Mr.
Well, it's hard to get any word in with this clown. Excuse me.
Hey, let me just say, Joe.
No. I'm Mr. President.
$3.5 million, Joe.
That is simply
Why did he deserve $3.5 million from Moscow?
Look, here's the deal. We want to talk about families and ethics. I don't want to do that. I mean, his family we could talk about all night. His family's already...
My family lost a fortune by coming down and helping us with government.
And that's such a...
Mr. President.
Every single one of them lost a fortune.
This is not about my family or his family. It's about your family. The American people. He doesn't... That's not true. It doesn't want to talk about what you need. You, the American people. It's about you. That's what we're talking about here.
All right, that's the end of the segment. We're moving on.
He didn't take them.
Well,
Vice President,
no. Can I be honest? It's a very important
question.
Try to
be honest.
He stood up.
No, the answer to the question is no.
Ukraine.
No, sir.
With $1 billion, if you
that is absolutely not true.
You're going to have
true,
gentlemen. I hate to raise my voice, but it seems to be, why shouldn't I be different than the two of you? So here's the deal.
Good point.
We have 6 segments. We have ended that segment. We're going to go to the next segment. In that segment, You each are going to have 2 uninterrupted moments. In those 2 uninterrupted minutes, Mr. President, you can say anything you want. I'm going to ask a question about race, but if you want to answer about something else, go ahead. But I think that the country would be better served if we allowed both people to speak with fewer interruptions. I'm appealing to you, sir, to do that.
Well, and him too.
Well, frankly, you've been doing more interrupting
Well, that's
than he
all right,
has.
but he does plenty.
Well, less than,
Yeah,
sir, less
does
than,
plenty.
no, less than you have. Let's please continue on. The issue of race. Vice President Biden, you say that President Trump's response to the violence in Charlottesville 3 years ago, when he talked about very fine people on both sides, was what directly led you to launch this run for president.
Oh, yeah, sure.
President Trump, you have often said that you believe you have done more for Black Americans than any president, with the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln. My question for the 2 of you is, why should voters trust you rather than your opponent to deal with the race issues facing this country over the next 4 years? Vice President Biden, you go first.
It's about equity and equality. It's about decency. It's about the Constitution. And we have never walked away from trying to require equity for everyone, equality for the whole of America. But we've never accomplished it. But we've never walked away from it like he has done. It is true. The reason I got in the race is when those people, close your eyes, remember what those people looked like coming out of the fields carrying torches, their veins bulging, just spewing anti-Semitic bile, and accompanied by the Ku Klux Klan. A young woman got killed. And they asked the president what he thought. He said there were very fine people on both sides. No president has ever said anything like that.
It is whose
now,
sir.
Second point I'd make to you is that when Floyd was killed, when Mr. Floyd was killed, there was a peaceful protest in front of the White House. What did he do? He came out of his bunker, had the military use tear gas on him so he could walk across to a church and hold up a Bible. And then what happened after that? The bishop of that very church said that it was a disgrace. The general who was with him said all he ever wants to do is divide people, not unite people at all. This is a president who has used everything as a dog whistle to try to generate racist hatred, racist division. This is a man who, in fact, you talk about helping African Americans. 1 in 1,000 African Americans has been killed because of the coronavirus. And if he doesn't do something quickly, by the end of the year, 1 in 500 will have been killed. 1 in 500 African Americans. This man is a savior of African Americans. This man cares at all. This man's done virtually nothing. Look, the fact is that you have to look at what he talks about. You have to look at what he did. And what he did has been disastrous for the African-American community.
So,
President Trump, you have 2 minutes. Why should Americans trust you over your opponent to deal with racism?
he did a crime bill, 1994, where you call them super predators, African Americans, the super predators, and they've never forgotten it. They've never forgotten it, Joe.
No, sir, it's his 2 minutes.
So you did that, and they call you a super predator, and I'm letting people out of jail now that you have treated the African American population community, you have treated the Black community about as bad as anybody in this country. You did the 1990, and that's why, if you look at the polls, I'm doing better than any Republican has done in a long time, because they saw what you did. You call them super predators, and you've called them worse than that, because you look back at your testimony over the years, you've called them a lot worse than that. As far as the church is concerned, and as far as the generals are concerned, we just got the support of 250 military leaders and generals, total support. Law enforcement, almost every law enforcement group in the United States. I have Florida, I have Texas, I have Ohio, I have Portland. The sheriff just came out today and he said, I support President Trump. I don't think you have any law enforcement. You can't even say the word law enforcement, because if you say those words, you're going to lose all of your radical left supporters. And why aren't you saying those words, Joe? Why don't you say the words law enforcement? Because you know what? If they called us in Portland, we would put out that fire in a half an hour, but they won't do it because they're run by radical left Democrats. If you look at Chicago, if you look at any place you want to look, Seattle, they heard we were coming in the following day, and they put up their hands, and we got back Seattle. Minneapolis, we got it back, Joe, because we believe in law and order, but you don't. The top 10 cities and just about the top 40 cities are run by Democrats and in many cases radical left. And they've got you wrapped around their finger, Joe, to a point where you don't want to say anything about law and order. And I'll tell you what, the people of this country want and demand law and order, and you're afraid to even say it.
All right. I want to return to the question of race. Vice President Biden, after the grand jury in the Breonna Taylor case decided not to charge any of the police with homicide, you said it raises the question, quote, whether justice could be equally applied in America. Do you believe that there is a separate but unequal system of justice for blacks in this country?
Yes, there is. There's systemic injustice in this country, in education and work and in law enforcement and the way in which it's enforced. But look, the vast majority of police officers are good, decent, honorable men and women. They risk their lives every day to take care of us. But there are some bad apples. And when they occur, when they find them, they have to be sorted out. They have to be held accountable. They have to be held accountable. And what I'm going to do as President of the United States is call together an entire group of people at the White House, well, everything from the civil rights groups to the police officers, the police chiefs, and we're going to work this out. We're going to work this out so we change the way in which we have more transparency in when these things happen. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to George Floyd. These cops aren't happy to see what happened to Breonna Taylor. Most don't like it. But we have to have a system where people are held accountable. And by the way, violence in response is never appropriate. Never appropriate. Peaceful protest is. Violence is never appropriate.
All right.
What is peaceful protest? When they run through the middle of the town and burn down your stores and kill people all over the place, and you say peaceful protest? No, it's not, but you say it is.
President Trump, I'd like to continue with the issue of race. I promise we're going to get to the issue of law and order in a moment. This month, your administration directed federal agencies to end racial sensitivity training that addresses white privilege or critical race theory. Why did you decide to do that, to end racial sensitivity training? And do you believe that there is systemic racism in this country, sir?
I ended it because it's racist. I ended it because a lot of people were complaining that they were asked to do things that were absolutely insane, that it was a radical revolution that was taking place in our military, in our schools, all over the place, and you know it, and so does everybody else. And he would know.
What is radical about racial sensitivity training, sir?
If you were a certain person, you had no status in life. It was sort of a reversal. And if you look at the people, we were paying people hundreds of thousands of dollars to teach very bad ideas and, frankly, very sick ideas. And really, they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to allow that to happen. We have to go back to the core values of this country. They were teaching people that our country is a horrible place, it's a racist place, and they were teaching people to hate our country. And I'm not going to allow that to happen.
Vice President Biden?
Nobody's doing that. He's the racist.
You just don't know.
Here's the deal. I know a lot more about this than he does.
Let him finish.
The fact is that there is racial insensitivity. People have to be made aware of what other people feel like, what insults them, what is demeaning to them. It's important to people know they don't want to. Many people don't want to hurt other people's feelings, but it makes a big difference. It makes a gigantic difference in the way a child is able to grow up and have a sense of self-esteem. It's a little bit like how this guy and his friends look down on so many people. They look down their nose on people like Irish Catholics like me and grew up in Scranton. They look down on people who don't have money. They look down on people who are of a different faith. They look down on people who are a different color. In fact, we're all Americans. The only way we're going to bring this country together is bring everybody together. There's nothing we cannot do if we do it together. We can take this on and we can defeat racism in America.
President Trump, sir.
During the Obama-Biden administration, there was tremendous division. There was hatred. You look at Ferguson, you go to many places. Look at Oakland. Look what happened in Oakland. Look what happened in Baltimore. Look what happened. Frankly, it was more violent than what I'm even seeing now.
Oh, my
But
Lord.
the reason is that
ridiculous.
the Democrats that run these
Absolutely
cities
ridiculous.
don't want to talk like you about law and order.
Violent
and you
crime,
still haven't mentioned.
violent
Are you in
crime.
favor of law and order?
I'm in favor of law. You following
Are you in
it, and a little
favor
bit
of law
order.
and order? Go
Yes,
ahead,
I'm
say
in
it.
favor.
You
Everybody's
asked a
in favor
question,
of
let him finish.
Law and
He
order.
loses
Law
left.
and
Let
order.
him answer.
Law and order with justice, where people get treated fairly. And the fact of the matter is, violent crime went down 15% in our administration.
All right.
It's gone up on his watch.
Went down much more
he
in
had-
ours.
All right, we're down.
is president of the United States of America.
Mr. President,
every record in the
Mr.
book.
President, you're going to be very happy because
And the
we're now going to
places-
talk about law and order.
Places we had trouble were Democratic-run cities.
That's
and
exactly
states.
my question.
Democratic-
There has been a dramatic increase in homicides in America this summer, particularly, and you often blame that on Democratic mayors and Democratic governors, but in fact, there have been equivalent spikes in Republican-led cities like Tulsa and Fort Worth. So the question is this really a party issue?
I think it's a party issue. You can bring in a couple of examples, but if you look at Chicago, what's going on in Chicago, where 53 people were shot and 8 died, shot. If you look at New York, where it's going up like nobody's ever seen anything, the numbers are going up 100, 150, 200%. Crime. It is
cities.
crazy what's going on. And he doesn't want to say law and order because he can't, because he'll lose his radical left supporters. And once he does that, it's over with. But if he ever got to run this country and they ran it the way he would want to run it, we would have our suburbs would be gone. By the way, our suburbs would be gone, and you would see problems like you've never seen.
He would know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised,
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles on racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And in the joint recommendation that came from the Biden-Bernie Sanders task force, you talked about, quote, reimagining policing. First of all, what does reimagining policing mean, and do you support?
It means.
Let me, if I might finish the question. What does reimagining policing mean, and do you support the Black Lives Matter call for community control of policing?
Look, what I support is the police having the opportunity to deal with the problems they face. And I'm totally opposed to defunding the police officers. As a matter of fact, local police, the only one defunding in his budget calls for a $400 million cut in local law enforcement assistance. They need more assistance. They need, when they show up for a 9/11 call, to have someone with them as a psychologist or psychiatrist to keep them from having to use force and be able to talk people down. We have to have community policing like we had before, where the officers get to know the people in the communities. That's when crime went down. It didn't go up, it went down. And so we have to be engaged.
That's not what they're talking about, Chris. That's not what they're talking about. He's talking about defunding the police.
That is not true.
He doesn't have any law support.
Look,
he has no law enforcement
that's not
support.
true.
Almost
that's
nothing.
Look.
Oh, really? Who do you have? Name one group that supports you. Name one group that came out and supported you. Go ahead. Think. We have time.
We don't have time to do anything.
No, think
All right.
Name one law enforcement group that came out and supported
I think, gentlemen,
you.
I think I'm going to take back the
There
moderator's
aren't. I don't
role,
think there are any.
and I want to get to another subject, which is the issue of protests in many cities that have turned violent. In Portland, Oregon, especially, we had more than 100 straight days of protests, which I think you would agree. You talk about peaceful protests. Many of those turned into riots. Mr. Vice President, you say that people who commit crimes should be held accountable. The question I have, though, is, as the Democratic nominee, and earlier tonight you said that you are the Democratic Party right now, have you ever called the Democratic mayor of Portland or the Democratic governor of Oregon and said, hey, you got to stop this, bring in the National Guard, do whatever it takes, but you stop the days and months of violence in Portland?
I don't hold public office now. I am a former vice president. I've made it clear in my public statements that the violence should be prosecuted. It should be prosecuted, and anyone who commits it.
But
should
you've
be
never
prosecuted.
called for the people, the leader. Excuse me, sir. You have never called for the leaders in Portland and in Oregon to bring in the National Guard and knock off 100 days of riots.
They can, in fact, take care of it if he just stay out of the way. Look here.
Oh, really?
Oh,
really?
Here's the thing.
I sent in the U.S. Marshals to get the killer of the young man in the middle of the street. They shot him, and for 3 days,
President Trump,
Portland wouldn't do anything. I had to send in the U.S. Marshals. They took care of business.
Go ahead, sir.
And by the way, his own former spokesperson said, riots and chaos and violence help his cause. That's what this is all about.
I don't know who said that.
I do.
Who?
I think Kellyanne Conway.
I don't think she said that.
She said that. And so here's the But here's the point.
Go ahead,
the point is that's what he keeps trying to rile everything up. He doesn't want to calm things down. Instead of going in and talking to people and saying, let's get everybody together, figure out how to deal with this. What's he do? He just pours gasoline in the fire constantly, every single solitary time.
And to button up this segment, I'm going to give you a minute to answer, sir. You have repeatedly criticized.
I have to answer his statement.
No, you have repeatedly. You've been talking back and forth.
You made a statement.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
Sir.
I would love to end it.
If you want to switch seats.
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd send in the National Guard, it would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
willing
to
do
specifically
that,
do it?
Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
Who would
right
you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing.
FBI director
This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacist. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got to be
not
kidding.
malicious. That's what his FBI. FBI director said.
Well, then you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
When a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody
Antifa
in your administration
bad.
tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous, radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving on to the Trump and Biden records.
They'll overthrow you.
When a president, I'm going to ask a question. When the president seeks a second term, it is generally a referendum on his record. But Vice President Biden, you like to quote one of your dad's sayings, which is, don't compare me to the almighty, compare me to the alternative. And in this case, sir, you are the alternative. Looking at both of your records, I'm going to ask each of you, why should voters elect you president over your opponent? In this segment, President Trump, you go first, 2 minutes.
Because there has never been an administration or president who has done more than I've done in a period of 3.5 years. And that's despite the impeachment hoax. And you saw what happened today with Hillary Clinton, where it was a whole big con job. But despite going through all of these things, where I had to fight both flanks and behind me and above, there has never been an administration that's done what I've done. The greatest, before COVID came in, the greatest economy in history, lowest unemployment numbers. Everything was good. Everything was going. And by the way, there was unity going to happen. People were calling me for the first time in years. They were calling and they were saying, it's time maybe. And then what happened? We got hit, but now we're building it back up again. A rebuilding of the military, including Space Force and all of the other things. A fixing of the VA, which was a mess under him. 308,000 people died because they didn't have proper health care. It was a mess. And we now got a 91% approval rating at the VA, our vets. We take care of our vets. But we've rebuilt our military. The job that we've done, and I'll tell you something, some people say maybe the most important. By the end of the first term, I'll have approximately 300 federal judges and Court of Appeals judges, 300, and hopefully 3 great Supreme Court justices. That is a record, the likes of which very few people, and you know one of the reasons I'll have so many judges? because President Obama and him left me 128 judges to fill. When you leave office, you don't leave any judges. That's like you just don't do that. They left 128 openings, and if I were a member of his party, because they have a little different philosophy, I'd say if you left us 128 openings, you can't be a good president, you can't be a good vice president. But I want to thank you because it gives us almost, it'll probably be above that number by the end of this term. 300 judges. It's a record.
Looking at both your records, why should voters elect you president as opposed to President Trump? You have 2 minutes uninterrupted.
Under this president, we become weaker, sicker, poorer, more divided, and more violent. When I was vice president, we inherited a recession. I was asked to fix it. I did. We left him a booming economy, and he caused the recession. With regard to being weaker, the fact is that I've gone head-to-head with Putin and made it clear to him we're not going to take any of his stuff. He's Putin's puppy. He still refuses to even say anything to Putin about the bounty on the heads of American soldiers.
Your son got $3.5 million.
And by the way, my son...
Wait a minute. Mr. President, your campaign agreed to both sides would get 2-minute answers uninterrupted. Well, your side agreed to it, and why don't you observe what your campaign agreed to as a ground rule, okay, sir?
He never keeps his word.
Can you add back I'm not asking. That was a rhetorical question.
Can you
Go
add
ahead,
back
sir.
30 seconds?
Yeah, yes,
okay.
you may have.
All right.
Go ahead.
So, thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking about Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Bo Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Bo. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true. He wasn't dishonorably.
Cocaine use. And he didn't have a job until you became vice president. Once you became vice president, he made a fortune in Ukraine, in China, in Moscow,
that is simply
and various
not
other places.
True.
He made a fortune.
My son.
And he didn't have a job.
My son, like a lot of people we know at home, had a drug problem. He's overtaken it. He's fixed it. He's worked on it, and I'm proud of him.
But why was he given tens of millions of dollars?
But he wasn't given tens of millions of dollars. That is totally discredited.
We've already been
totally discredited.
We've already been through this. I think the American people would rather hear about more substantial subjects. Well, you know, as the moderator, sir, I'm going to make a judgment call here.
Gets $3.5 million from the mayor of Moscow.
Let's talk about
not true.
Gentlemen,
that report is totally discredited.
Mitt
Romney on that committee said it wasn't worth taxpayers' money, that report. It was written for political reasons.
You know, I'd like to talk about climate change.
So would I.
Okay. The forest fires in the West are raging now. They have burned millions of acres. They have displaced hundreds of thousands of people. When state officials there blame the fires on climate change, Mr. President, you said, I don't think the science knows. Over your 4 years, you have pulled the U.S. out of the Paris Climate Accord. You have rolled back a number of Obama environmental records. What do you believe about the science of climate change? And what will you do in the next 4 years to confront it?
I want crystal clean water and air. I want beautiful, clean air. We have now the lowest carbon. If you look at our numbers right now, we are doing phenomenally. But I haven't destroyed our businesses. Our businesses aren't put out of commission. If you look at the Paris Accord, it was a disaster from our standpoint. And people are actually very happy about what's going on because our businesses are doing well. As far as the fires are concerned, you need forest management in addition to everything else. the forest floors are loaded up with trees, dead trees that are years old, and they're like tinder, and leaves and everything else. You drop a cigarette in there, the whole forest burns down. You've got to have forest management. You've got to have cuts.
What do you believe about the science of climate change, sir?
I believe that we have to do everything we can to have immaculate air, immaculate water, and do whatever else we can that's good. You know, we're planting 1 billion trees, the Billion Tree Project, and it's very exciting for a lot of people.
You believe that human pollution, greenhouse gas emissions contributes to the global warming of this planet?
I think a lot of things do, but I think to an extent, yes. But I also think we have to do better management of our forests. Every year, I get the call, California's burning. California's burning. If that was cleaned, if you had forest management, good forest management, you wouldn't be getting those calls. You know, in Europe, they have forest cities. They're called forest cities. They maintain their forests. They manage their forests. I was with the head of a major country. It's a forest city. He said, sir, we have trees that are far more, they ignite much easier than California. There shouldn't be that problem. I spoke with the governor about it. I'm getting along very well with the governor. But I said, you know, at some point, you can't every year have hundreds of thousands of acres of land just burned to the ground. That's burning down because of a lack of management.
But, sir, if you believe in the science of climate change, why have you rolled back the Obama Clean Power Plan, which limited carbon emissions in power plants? Why have you relaxed?
Because it was driving energy prices through the sky.
Why have you relaxed fuel economy standards that are going to create more pollution from cars and trucks?
Well, not really, because what's happening is the car is much less expensive and it's a much safer car, and you're talking about a tiny difference. And then what would happen, because of the cost of the car, you would have at least double and triple the number of cars purchased. We have the old slugs out there that are 10, 12 years old. If you did that, the car would be safer. It would be much cheaper by $3,500.
In the case of California, they've simply ignored
No, but you would take a lot of cars
rollback
off the market because people would be able to afford a car. Now, and by the way, we're going to see how that turns out. But a lot of people agree with me, many people. The car has gotten so expensive because they have computers all over the place for an extra little bit of gasoline. And I'm okay with electric cars, too. I think I'm all for electric cars. I've given big incentives for electric cars. But what they've done in California is just crazy.
Right. Vice President Biden, I'd like you to respond to the president's climate change record, but I also want to ask you about a concern. You proposed $2 trillion in green jobs. You talk about new limits, not abolishing, but new limits on fracking, ending the use of fossil fuels to generate electricity by 2035, and zero net emission of greenhouse gases by 2050. The president says a lot of these things would tank the economy and cost millions of jobs.
He's absolutely wrong, number one. Number two, if in fact, during our administration, the Recovery Act, I was in charge, able to bring down the cost of renewable energy to cheaper than or as cheap as coal and gas and oil. Nobody's going to build another coal-fired plant in America. No one's going to build another oil-fired plant in America. They're going to move to renewable energy, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that we are able to take the federal fleet and turn it into a fleet that's run on their electric vehicles. Making sure that we can do that, we're going to put 500,000 charging stations in all of the highways that we're going to be building in the future. We're going to build an economy that, in fact, is going to provide for the ability us to take 4 million buildings and make sure that they, in fact, are weatherized in a way that, in fact, they'll emit significantly less gas and oil because the heat will not be going out. There's so many things that we can do now to create thousands and thousands of jobs. We can get to net zero in terms of energy production by 2035. Not only not costing people jobs, creating millions of good paying jobs, not $15 an hour, but prevailing wage, by having a new infrastructure that, in fact, is green. And the first thing I will do, I will rejoin the Paris Accord. I will join the Paris Accord because with us out of it, look what's happening. It's all falling apart. And talk about someone who has no relationship with foreign policy. Brazil, the rainforests of Brazil are being torn down, are being ripped down. More carbon is absorbed in that rainforest than every bit of carbon that's emitted in the United States. Instead of doing something about that, I would be gathering up and making sure we had the countries of the world coming up with $20 billion and say, here's $20 billion. Stop tearing down the forest. And if you don't, then you're going to have significant economic consequences.
What about the argument that President Trump basically says that you have to balance environmental interests and economic interests, and he's drawn his line?
Well, he hadn't drawn a line. He still, for example, he wants to make sure that methane's not a problem. You can now emit more methane without it being a problem. Methane. This is a guy who says that you don't have to have mileage standards for automobiles that exist now. This is a guy who says that, well, the fact that it's all true. And here's the deal.
He's talking about the Green New Deal, and it's not $2 billion or $20 billion, as you said. It's $100 trillion.
I'm talking about
where they want to rip down buildings
and
rebuild the building.
No,
it's the dumbest, most ridiculous. Where airplanes are out of business, where two-car systems are out, where they want to take out the cows too. That's not true either, right? This is a $100 trillion.
Look,
that's more money than our country could make in 100 years if we're going
to the case.
All right, let me because I actually, wait a minute, sir. I actually have studied your plan, and it includes upgrading 4 million buildings, weatherizing 2 million homes over 4 years, building 1.5 million energy-efficient homes. So the question becomes, the president is saying, I think some people who support the president would say that sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money and hurt the economy.
What it's going to do is going to create thousands and millions of jobs, good-paying jobs.
Let him finish, sir.
He doesn't know how to do that.
$100 billion.
The fact is, it's going to create millions of good-paying jobs, and these tax incentives for people to weatherize, which he wants to get rid of. It's going to make the economy much safer. Look how much we're paying now to deal with the hurricanes. By the way, he has an answer for hurricanes. He said maybe we should drop a nuclear weapon on them. They may.
I never said that.
That's what he did say.
You made it up.
And here's the deal.
You make up.
We are going to be in a position where we can create hard, good jobs by making sure the environment is clean and we all are in better shape. We spend billions of dollars now, on floods, hurricanes, rising seas. We're in real trouble. Look what's happened just in the Midwest with these storms that come through and wipe out entire sections and counties in Iowa. They didn't happen before. They're because of global warming. We make up 15% of the world's problem. But the rest of the world, we've got to get them to come along. That's why we have to get back into the Paris Accord.
All right, gentlemen.
Wait a minute, Chris. So why didn't he do it for 47 years? You were vice president. Why didn't you get the world? China sends up real dirt into the air. Russia does. India does. They all do. We're supposed to be good. And by the way, he made a couple of statements. The Green New Deal is $100 trillion,
that
not
is not
$20 billion.
my plan.
That's
the Green New
you want to
Deal
rebuild every
is
building.
Not my plan.
You want to rebuild every
building. If he knew anything
he made a
about
statement about the military. He said I said something about the military. He and his friends made it up, and then they went with it. I never said it.
Okay.
That is
what
not
he
true.
did
Sir,
is he
you're done
said
in this segment.
he called the military stupid bastards.
I
and he
did
said
not
it on
say
tape. He said stupid
Please,
bastards. He said it.
Stop.
I would never say that.
Play
to
it. Play it.
Go ahead. Mr. Vice President answered his final question.
The final question is, I can't remember which of all his rantings.
I'm having a little trouble myself. But and about the economy and about this question of what it's going to cost.
The economy.
I mean, the Green New Deal and the idea of what your environmental changes will do.
The Green New Deal will pay for itself as we move forward. We're not going to build plants that, in fact, are great polluting plants.
So do you support the Green New Deal?
Pardon me?
Do you support
No, I don't support the Green New Deal.
Oh, you don't? Oh, well, that's a big statement.
I support
that means you just lost the radical left.
I support the Biden plan that I put forward.
Okay.
The Biden plan, which is different than what he calls the radical Green New Deal.
All right, gentlemen, final segment, election integrity. As we meet tonight, millions of Americans are receiving mail-in ballots or going to vote early. How confident should we be that this will be a fair election? And what are you prepared to do over the next 5+ weeks, because it'll not only be to Election Day, but also counting some ballots, mail-in ballots after Election Day? What are you prepared to do to reassure the American people that the next president will be the legitimate winner of this election? In this final segment, Mr. Vice President, you go first.
Prepared to let people vote. They should go to iwillvote.com, decide how they're going to vote, when they're going to vote, and what means by which they're going to vote. His own Homeland Security Director, and as well as the FBI Director, says there is no evidence at all that mail-in ballots are a source of being manipulated and cheating. They said that. The fact is that there are going to be millions of people because of COVID that are going to be voting by mail-in ballots, like he does, by the way. He sits behind the Resolute desk and sends his ballot to Florida, number one. Number two, we're going to make sure that those people who want to vote in person are able to vote because enough poll watchers are there to make sure they can socially distance. The polls are open on time, and the polls stay open until the votes are counted. And this is all about trying to dissuade people from voting because he's trying to scare people into thinking that it's not going to be legitimate. Show up and vote. You will determine the outcome of this election. Vote, vote, vote. If you're able to vote early in your state, vote early. If you're able to vote in person, vote in person. Vote whatever way is the best way for you, because he cannot stop you from being able to determine the outcome of this election. And in terms of whether or not when the votes are counted, and they're all counted, that will be accepted. If I win, that will be accepted. If I lose, that'll be accepted. But by the way, if in fact he says he's not sure what he's going to accept, well, let me tell you something. It doesn't matter, because if we get the votes, it's going to be all over. He's going to go. He can't stay in power. It won't happen. It won't happen. So vote. Just make sure you understand you have it in your control to determine what this country is going to look like the next 4 years. Is it going to change? You're going to get 4 more years of these lies.
Mr. President, 2 minutes.
So when I listened to Joe talking about a transition, there's been no transition from when I won. I won that election. And if you look at crooked Hillary Clinton, if you look at all of the different people, there was no transition because they came after me trying to do a coup. They came after me spying on my campaign. They started from the day I won and even before I won, from the day I came down the escalator with our First Lady. They were a disaster. They were a disgrace to our country. And we've caught them. We've caught them all. We've got it all on tape. We've caught them all. And by the way, you gave the idea for the Logan Act against General Flynn. You better take a look at that, because we caught you in a sense. And President Obama was sitting in the office. He knew about it too. So don't tell me about a free transition. As far as the ballots are concerned, it's a disaster. A solicited ballot, okay, solicited is okay. You're soliciting, you're asking, they send it back, you send it back. I did that. If you have an unsolicited, they're sending millions of ballots all over the country. There's fraud. They found them in creeks. They found some with the name Trump, just happened to have the name Trump just the other day in a waste paper basket. They're being sent all over the place. They sent 2 in a Democrat area. They sent out 1,000 ballots. Everybody got 2 ballots. This is going to be a fraud like you've never seen. The other thing, it's nice on November 3rd, you're watching and you see who won the election. And I think we're going to do well because people are really happy with the job we've done. But you know what? We won't know. We might not know for months because these ballots are going to be all over. Take a look at what happened in Manhattan. Take a look at what happened in New Jersey. Take a look at what happened in Virginia and other places. They're not losing 2%, 1%, which, by the way, is too much. An election could be won or lost with that. They're losing 30 and 40%. It's a fraud, and it's a shame. And can you imagine where they say you have to have your ballot in by November 10th? November 10th. That means that's 7 days after the election, in theory, should have been announced.
Okay.
We have major states with that,
sir,
all run by Democrats.
2 minutes is 2 minutes.
All run by Democrats. It's
President Trump,
it's a rigged election.
You're going to be able to continue. You have been charging for months that mail-in balloting is going to be a disaster. You say it's rigged, that it's going to lead to fraud. But in 2018, in the last midterm election, 31 million people voted mail-in voting. That was a quarter, more than a quarter of all the voters that year cast their ballots by mail. Now that millions of mail-in ballots have gone out, what are you going to do about it? And are you counting on the Supreme Court including a Justice Barrett, to settle any dispute?
Yeah, I think I'm counting on them to look at the ballots, definitely. I hope we don't need them in terms of the election itself. But for the ballots, I think so. Because what's happening is incredible. I read today, where at least 1% of the ballots for 2016 were invalidated. They take them, we don't like them, we don't like them.
But what
they
are you
throw
going to
them
do
out
about it?
left
There
and
are
right.
millions of ballots going out
What
right
you
now.
do
What
is
are
you
gonna
go
do?
and vote. You do a solicited ballot,
No,
and that's
I
okay,
know
or
your
you go and
complaint.
vote.
I'm asking you about the fact that millions of people
You go and vote. You go and
No,
vote.
but
like
what I'm
they,
saying is, what are
like
you
they
gonna do
used
about
to
the fact
in the
that
old.
millions of people?
You either do, Chris, a solicited ballot where you're sending it in, they're sending it back, and you're sending. They have mailmen with lots of it. Did you see what's going on? Take a look at West Virginia. Mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no evidence
This is
of that.
not going to end well.
5 states have had mail-in
sir.
ballots for the last decade or more. 5, including 2 Republican states. And you don't have to solicit the ballot. It's sent to you. It's sent to your home. What they're saying is that it has to be a postmark by election day. If it doesn't get in till the 7th, 8th, 9th, it still should be counted. He's just afraid of counting the votes because he knows the outcome.
You're wrong.
I want to continue with you on this, Vice President Biden. Because
Chris, he's so wrong when he makes a statement like that.
Excuse me. Vice President Biden, the biggest problem, in fact, over the years with mail-in voting has not been fraud historically. It has been that sizable numbers, sometimes hundreds of thousands of ballots are thrown out because they have not been properly filled out, or there is some other irregularity, or they missed the deadline. So the question I have is, are you concerned that the Supreme Court with a Justice Barrett will settle any dispute?
I'm concerned that any court would settle this because here's the deal. When you get a ballot and you fill it out, you're supposed to have an affidavit. If you didn't know, you have someone say that this is me. You should be able to, if in fact you can verify that's you before the ballot is thrown out, that's sufficient to be able to count the ballot because someone made a mistake and not dotting the correct I. Who they voted for, testify, say who they voted for, say it's you, that is totally legitimate.
All right.
Excuse me, Chris, when you have 80 million ballots,
I have a final
sending
question.
and swamping the system, you know it can't be done. You know it can't, and already there's been fraud.
Mail service delivers 185 million pieces of mail a day.
In 8 states, we can keep talking. In 8 states, election workers are prohibited, currently by law, 8 states, from even beginning to process ballots, even take them out of the envelopes and flatten them until Election Day. That means that it's likely, because there's going to be a huge increase in mail-in balloting, that we are not going to know on election night who the winner is, that it could be days, it could be weeks.
Could be months.
Until we find out who the new president is. So first for you, sir, finally for the vice president, I hope neither of you will interrupt the other. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm during this extended period, not to engage in any civil unrest? And will you pledge tonight that you will not declare victory until the election has been independently certified? President Trump, you go first.
I'm urging my supporters to go into the polls and watch very carefully, because that's what has to happen. I am urging them to do it. As you know, today there was a big problem. In Philadelphia, they went in to watch. They were called poll watchers, a very safe, very nice thing. They were thrown out. They weren't allowed to watch. You know why? Because bad things happen in Philadelphia, bad things. And I am urging my people. I hope it's going to be a fair election. If it's a fair election, I am 100% on board. But if I see tens of thousands of ballots being manipulated, I can't go along with that. And I'll tell you what,
does that
from
mean,
a common sense,
does that mean you're going to tell your people to take to the street?
It means you have a fraudulent election. You're sending out 80 million ballots. They're not equipped to. These people aren't equipped to handle it. Number one. Number two, they cheat. They cheat. Hey, they found ballots in a waste paper basket 3 days ago, and they all had the name military ballots. They were military. They all had the name Trump on them.
Vice President
you think
Biden,
that's good?
Vice President Biden, final question for you. Will you urge your supporters to stay calm while the vote is counted, and will you pledge not to declare victory until the election is independently certified?
Yes, and here's the deal. We count the ballots, as you pointed out. some of these ballots in some states can't even be opened until Election Day. And if there's thousands of ballots, it's going to take time to do it. And by the way, our military, they've been voting by ballots since the end of the Civil War, in effect. And that's what's going to happen. Why is it for them somehow not fraudulent? It's the same process. It's honest. No one has established at all that there is fraud related to mail-in ballots, that somehow it's a fraudulent process.
It's already been established. Take a look at Carolyn Maloney's race.
I asked you had an opportunity to respond.
Look at Carolyn Maloney.
Go ahead.
They have no idea what happened.
Vice President Biden, go ahead.
He has no idea what he's talking about. Here's the deal. The fact is, I will accept it, and he will too. You know why? Because once the winner is declared, after all the ballots are counted, all the votes are counted, that'll be the end of it. That'll be the end of it. And if it's me, in fact, fine. If it's not me, I'll support the outcome. And I'll be a president not just for the Democrats. I'll be a president for Democrats and Republicans. And this guy,
I want to see an honest ballot count.
Gentlemen, you say that's the end of it? This is the end of this debate?
Honest ballot count.
We're going to leave it there. To be continued as in more debates as we go on. President Trump, Vice President Biden, it's been an interesting hour and a half. I want to thank you both for participating in the first of 3 debates that you have agreed to engage in. We want to thank Case Western Reserve University and the Cleveland Clinic for hosting this event. The next debate, sponsored by the Commission on Presidential Debates, will be 1 week from tomorrow, October 7th, at the University of Utah in Salt Lake City. The 2 vice presidential nominees, Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris, will debate at 9 p.m. Eastern that night. We hope you watch. Until then, thank you and good night.
Everything's set for tonight, Mr. Trump.
I wonder what Trump's game is this time.
Trump's got a new game. Trump's got a new deal.
What's your game, Donald?
Heard about Trump's new deal? What?
Trump has a new game. What is it?
Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, Mr. Trump, please.
My new game is Trump, the game.
Trump, the game, where you deal for everything you've ever wanted to own. Because it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you win.
Yes!
Play Trump, the game, from Milton Bradley.
I think you'll like it.
At Trump University, we teach success. That's what it's all about. Success. It's going to happen to you.
Donald Trump is without question the world's most famous businessman. As a real estate developer, he has reshaped the New York skyline with some of that great city's most prestigious and elegant buildings. Now, Donald Trump brings his years of experience to the world of business education with the launch of Trump University.
If you're going to achieve anything, you have to take action. And action is what Trump University is all about. But action is just a small part of Trump University. Trump University is about knowledge, about a lot of different things. Above all, it's about how to become successful. We're going to have professors and adjunct professors that are absolutely terrific, terrific people, terrific brains, successful. We are going to have the best of the best. And honestly, if you don't learn from them, if you don't learn from me, if you don't learn from the people that we're going to be putting forward, and these are all people that are hand-picked by me, then you're just not going to make it in terms of the world of success. I think the biggest step towards success is going to be sign up at Trump University. We're going to teach you about business. We're going to teach you better than the business schools are going to teach you. And I went to the best business school. We're going to teach you better. It's going to be a shorter process. It's not going to involve years and years of your life. It's going to be less expensive, and I think it's going to be a better education, and it's going to be what you need to know. So we're going to teach you business. We're going to teach you life. We're going to teach you salesmanship. We're going to teach you what you need to know. And we're going to also make sure that no matter what you do, as I said before, you're going to love it. Because if you don't love it, it's never, ever going to work. When it comes to great steaks, I've just raised the stakes. The Sharper Image is one of my favorite stores with fantastic products of all kinds. That's why I'm thrilled they agree with me. Trump steaks are the world's greatest steaks, and I mean that in every sense of the word. And the Sharper Image is the only store where you can buy them. Trump steaks are by far the best tasting, most flavorful beef you've ever had. Truly in a league of their own. Trump steaks are 5-star gourmet, quality that belong in a very, very select category of restaurant, and are certified Angus Beef Prime. There's nothing better than that. Of all of the beef produced in America, less than 1% qualifies for that category. It's the best of the best. Until now, you could only enjoy steaks of this quality in one of my resort restaurants or America's finest steakhouses, but now that's changed. Today, through the Sharper Image, you can enjoy the world's greatest steaks in your own home with family, friends, anytime. Trump steaks are aged to perfection to provide the ultimate in tenderness and flavor. If you like your steak, you'll absolutely love Trump steaks. Treat yourself to the very, very best life has to offer. And as a gift, Trump steaks are the best you can give. One bite and you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And believe me, I understand steaks. It's my favorite food, and these are the best.
And welcome to the Trump Network. I want you to know why I'm so excited to be a part of this great organization. At no time in recent history has our economy been in the state that it is today. It's a mess. The economic meltdown, greed, and ineptitude in the financial industry have sabotaged the dreams of millions of people. Americans need a new plan. They need a new dream. The Trump Network wants to give millions of people renewed hope and with an exciting plan to opt out of the recession. Let's get out of this recession right now. with cutting-edge health and wellness formulas and a system where you can develop your own financial independence, the Trump Network offers people the opportunity to achieve their American dream. I'm still looking for dreams. I'm doing damn well in life, but I'm still looking for the dream. It's a winning combination because it means you and your family can benefit financially from our breakthrough program. Follow our step-by-step success system that will help you grow your business. This journey is going to be a fantastic one, and you're going to have a lot of fun. The Trump Network is positioned to help millions of people overcome the recession and achieve the success they've always dreamed of. I hope you're going to join us. It's going to be fun and hopefully very profitable.
Stands ready to take its place alongside the great classics of Europe. But unlike those European races, this event has no history. It's creating its own history as we speak. And the man who has put his name on the event is Donald Trump.
I really look to the future. I always do, with investments, with deals, with events, with anything. And I think this is an event that can be tremendous in the future, and it can really very much rival the Tour de France.
There have been races in America, but they've been primarily a mix of criteriums and crowd-pleasing events. The European races, mostly long, point-to-point road races and time trials, the race of truth. This event, however, a European event.
Well, it's very European-oriented, and usually I'm involved in the boxing and the championship fights and this and that, which is really a much higher exposure. But I think this is going to be every bit as good and certainly every bit as exciting. We look forward to it.
Thank you, Brian, for the explanation, and Donald Trump for the race. We'll come back with a look at the prologue course. Don't go away.
Most people know why this man is too famous. His real estate endeavors have brought him billions and allowed him to engage seriously in the world of sports. And from his New York roots, Trump has even gone Hollywood.
I need $6 million, and I need it yesterday.
Well, it's not for me to ask why, but if you feel it's that important and you need it that quickly, I'll give you $6 million for your apartment, and I'll sell your apartment, Maxie, and anything that I get over the $6 million, I'll give to you as soon as I sell it.
I love you. I can't believe you're doing... Thank you.
So while some of us think about buying a bike, Donald Trump has bought a bike race. We caught up with him at the Capitol building in Albany, New York.
Why not the Tour de USA or Tour de New England? Why not just drop the name Trump?
The problem is you wouldn't be here doing an interview right now. That's the problem. And we've gone over it, and I would have almost preferred if we could have done without. And somehow now it's been almost received beautifully. It's just been so successful and so nice, and the coverage has been so fantastic. A lot of the races came actually because of the name. So the name has been a plus, and again, I wanted to be successful because that's important for the name.
Let's look ahead. 10 years from now, where do you feel the Tour de Trump will be?
I think that with a little maturity, with a little time, with a little effort, and with NBC's help, we'll make this the equivalent of the Tour de France. I can't say we're going to make it more, although in theory, you can also say that we have many more people, so you in theory could make it more. But I would like to make this the equivalent of the Tour de France.
In your book, The Art of the Deal, you said that money really isn't that important. It's just a means of keeping score. It's playing the game that excites you.
I love the game. I like the money, and the money is certainly a method of keeping score. But I don't do things for money. I do things because I enjoy doing them. that really sometimes can translate into more money than you would have made if you went just after the money. I think the tour de Trump is an example.
We're sitting here in Albany, the state capitol, the Senate chamber. 10 years from now, do you see Donald Trump in politics?
I don't see myself as a politician. I think I speak my mind perhaps too bluntly. I like to tell the truth. I'm not sure that a great politician can always tell the truth. I do like to tell the truth. I like to say what should be done and when it should be done, and I'm not sure that a politician's allowed to do that and get elected. And that's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate for the country, I can tell you that.
Now a tough one. This is the one we've been saving. When is the last time that you rode a bicycle?
Well, that's a tough question. That was many, many years ago. And the whole look of bikes are much different today. I looked at some of the racing bikes today, and I said, you know, is this a bike? It looked more like a rocket ship, I suspect, than a bike. But I would say when I was about 7 or 8 years old was probably about it.
Hello and welcome to our post-debate breakdown. We just finished the first presidential debate and we're still sober, but we're exhausted from that spectacle, as I'm sure the rest of you are too. And I'm sure that you guys have questions for us to answer, but we're going to break it all down tonight. Be sure to tweet us at #AskTheBreakdown. I'm Tara Setmayer. This is Rick Wilson. Starting the first half of our discussion, we have our Lincoln Project senior advisors, Stuart Stevens and the Steve Schmidt. Sarah Lenti and Mike Madrid will be joining us a little bit later. We're going to get right into it. There's just so much to unpack, which was thus the delay after the debate for us, because there was a lot. Rick, that was uneventful. Let's break it down.
Donald Trump tonight brought everything that the campaign's Oppo team had dug up and threw it out there at high speed. But I have to say, this was a president who was unhinged. He was undisciplined. He was decompensating. He was throwing everything out that he possibly could throw out there. But at the end of the night, when you're looking at an election that's going to be decided in the suburbs, and while I am a 56-year-old white dude, one thing that someone pointed out to me earlier tonight was, you know what educated women in the suburbs love? A guy who shouts at them constantly and interrupts everything they say, and is a bully and postures and squints and glares and is absolutely out of control all the time. That just says,
Oh, I wrote that down. How did this go over with the suburban housewives who have to deal with the suburban housewives, as Trump called them, that have to deal with unruly 10-year-olds? If their son had ever acted like that in school, they'd be sent to the principal's office and their mothers would be getting a phone call to come pick them up. And they'd be sent to, reform school the way Trump was when he was in elementary school, because he was so freaking unruly. It was unbelievably unpresidential. And Joe Biden said as much. And Chris Wallace was trying to handle it all. And it was a lot. So for those who didn't see it, let's remind them. Let's roll some of the highlights.
What's going on? Take a look at West Virginia, mailmen selling the ballots. They're being sold. They're being dumped in rivers. This is a horrible thing for our country. This is not going to end well.
There is no evidence.
This is
only
not
one.
going
Vice
to
President
end well.
5 states have had mail-in ballots for the.
oh
This
yeah,
is not going to end well.
The systematic threats. Guys, the back end of this debate, I think we'll bring Steve in. Proud Boys, by the way, is trending on the internet right now. I've been told. We're going to get to that, folks, in just a moment. The end of that debate was a threat to America. It's the same threat he's been making for weeks on end. It's the threat that he will not abide by the outcome of this election unless it's the outcome he wants. I think we ought to bring in Steve and Stuart right away, because I think there's a lot to talk about in this thing. Guys, we've all been to presidential debates. We've all seen them. How do you put this in historical context, Steve?
It's I mean, what a fucking disgrace, right? I mean, the only thing I could think about, people all around the world watched this debate and saw Donald Trump. And I thought, first off, I thought Joe Biden crushed Donald Trump tonight. I thought that he had great moments. I thought he was restrained. I don't know what you're supposed to do when you have an unhinged asshole yelling at you like that, but I thought Biden acquitted himself really, really well in that space. It ended with a threat, but the blustering, the bullying, the rudeness, his unhinged behavior, the lying, the sweaty, falling apart aspect of it, it's just, I'm still trying to process it, other than it's inconceivable to me. And I mean this, it's inconceivable to me that any normal person could watch him and say, let's give him 4 more years. Just inconceivable to me.
How about you, Stuart? I mean, you've been to this rodeo a few times.
I was really struck in 2000 in the first Bush-Gore debate. Our holding room was next to the Gore people. and we could hear them through the wall, and they thought they won that debate big because they were scoring in on policy points. But Gore came across with his sighing as very condescending, and we were able to spin that, and it's how the public saw it. But I mean, let me tell you, man, I mean, total charmer compared to Trump tonight. I mean, that's what people are going to remember. This is a guy you wouldn't sit next to on a plane. I mean, not even for a short flight. This is, the premise of the election we've all agreed upon, I think, is that if the race is about Trump, he loses. And what was this debate about? It was about Donald Trump. I think clearly to the extent they have strategy, and it's always questionable with Trump, was to try to jam this guy up. It's exhausting to have to deal with someone constantly interrupting, and try to get Biden to make some big mistake that they could then take and amplify. Well, that didn't happen. I actually thought Biden got better as we went along. So, my bet is that this is going to show as a big win for Biden. There's a side of us when you watch him that you want him to yell back, and Biden's not doing that. But Biden's playing his game. He's not getting drawn into this. And he's the alternative to Trump. You got 21% right track in the country. Trump is arguing the country's going great. So he gets that 21%. And I think it's going to be, I would predict it's going to have a big, larger than normal post-debate move, and it'll go toward Biden.
I think you're right about that, Stu, that Biden didn't have any major gaffes. Before the debate during the pre-show, I was telling Anthony Scaramucci that I had agita, which is angst. It's an Italian word for angst about Biden's possible performance. And I was very happy with most of what Biden did. There were some areas, like you said, where your instinct is, why didn't you nail Trump on like his taxes? I thought he let him get away with that a little bit too much. He could have nailed him on that. And every time he started to get going, though, it's clear that Biden was well prepared and that he had well prepared rebuttals that were great. When he turned to the screen and talked directly to the American people on a number of issues, every time the more intransigent Trump became, Biden would try to turn it right to the American people. This guy doesn't care about you. He doesn't care about your family. When he talked about COVID and turned it around about one of the most powerful moments of the debate, I thought, when he said, how many people don't have an empty chair at their kitchen table because someone in their family died of COVID because of the failure of Donald Trump. That was excellent. Unfortunately, every time Biden started to get Trump, really dig him on that, Trump just kept interrupting, over talking. And Chris Wallace had to come in and try to settle it. And then a lot of times the tie went to Trump because he would just let him keep talking and Biden didn't continue. So he did that a number of times, but he did not have any major gaps, which was something that I was encouraged by, thank God. And he's definitely not senile, for God's sakes. If anybody was, out of their mind, it was Donald Trump. And not only did he not say anything, did he make a threat to Rick's point about the fairness of the election and accepting the results, he also didn't denounce the Proud Boys, a white supremacist, violent group that's out here acting like vigilantes and intimidating people, and they're just thrilled about it. Can we roll that clip to remind people where he had an opportunity to denounce them and he didn't?
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm
prepared
willing to do
specifically
that, but
do it? Well, go ahead, sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it.
Do you want to call him? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
white
name.
Supremacists and
who would you like me to condemn?
White supremacists and right
Proud Boys. Stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
Yeah, that's George Wallace. That's George Wallace calling it. Yeah, I mean,
that's a callback, guys, to the 2016 election, where it took Donald Trump 2 weeks to denounce David Duke. 2 weeks. And he kept going back and forth like, I hear he likes me. I don't know him personally. Maybe he does. Maybe I don't know. When he did, he knew exactly who the guy was.
That's right.
I
That was a
think
lie.
I think it's worse than George Wallace. I mean, George Wallace, unless I'm historically misinformed on this, and I don't mean that facetiously. Were there right-wing militias on the streets in the way
Well,
that there
no.
are intimating violence and and being encouraged? I mean, I think Wallace was even more subtle at some level than Trump is.
Steve, to your point though, some would argue that he was empowering the police, who were agents of the state, to engage in civil rights violations. But to your point, you had the Klan, and that was about it.
Right. No doubt. Right. So he had a terror group, he had a Klan, but we see these militia groups operating, it seems, with impunity in American cities. And I said the last time we were all on together, when we saw some of this in Louisville, someone needs to explain to me what the difference between these groups are and an early version of Trump's essay. I think the analogy is much more 1930s. It's very disturbing to me. He absolutely, when he says, hey, you got to be ready here, it's an intimation of violence. It's a threat, as you pointed out, Rick. It's a threat against the country. And, we've never had a presidential debate for sure that ended with the incumbent president intimating that he's not going to accept the results of the election and threatening the country with violence if he doesn't remain in power. That's incredible.
Right. And what we saw tonight, Donald Trump is the master of the dog whistle. And so he says this thing about the Proud Boys, throws this big piece of red meat out there. Right now, Proud Boys is trending #1 on Twitter. The founder of the Proud Boys, apparently, or one of the founders, just tweeted out how delighted they were. They feel honored. They're standing by for their president. They're ready to take action when he commands. So, he successfully did what he's done before, just like with Charlottesville, just like with the Confederate flags and the Confederate memorials. This man has a cadre out there, and whether it's Steve calls it like a proto SA or what have you, these people are the ones who Donald Trump will justify by this imaginary Antifa monster. And he will go out there and say, well, I guess those Proud Boys had to be there armed up and outside the voting place. I guess they had to be on the street. They are signaling
Rick, they're doing it already.
Oh, I know.
They're doing it already with Kyle Rittenhouse and Kenosha.
Right. It's radicalization moving into the presidential debate forum.
Kyle Rittenhouse's mother was greeted with applause and a standing fucking ovation at a Republican event in Wisconsin recently. She drove him to that protest. That is correct. And she drove him to that protest that where he decided that he was going to take up arms and be a vigilante and kill 2 people. So this is where the Republican Party is going. And it's unbelievable to me that we have a president of the United States that is activating these people. It is a Cold War turning hot, a cold Civil War possibly turning hot. Hearing these people are listening to Donald Trump like brown shirts, waiting for him to activate them. And that should scare the hell out of everyone. Look at this. Look at this. Donald Trump is giving these people a license to take up arms and shoot and kill their own people in the name of protecting him and what they think is patriotism. This is really, really dangerous. And I hope that the Biden campaign and our law enforcement officials take this seriously. We've already seen people lose their lives.
I thought one of the best moments that Biden had was when he talked about the suburbs. Because that really is ground zero for this race. And I think that Trump has completely miscalculated how suburbs like to see themselves now. And a lot of this is voting for someone that you think will represent you and the way you want to be, which is why Trump did well with white grievance. But people in the suburbs don't want to see, they don't want their kids to look at them and think that if somebody moved in next door, it's a different ethnicity or different religion, that they would be greeted hostily. That's not. They don't want that. I think it's a monumental blunder. The whole Proud Boys thing, I think, is When the history of this election is going to be written, I think it's going to go down as one of the monumental political miscalculations in modern politics. Yeah.
Like Espy
Imagine
is
that.
coming up in the polls there rapidly. So I think let's go ahead and roll that clip we have on this issue.
It's like
He wouldn't know a suburb unless he took a wrong turn.
Oh, I know suburbs.
He would not.
So much
I was
better.
raised.
Go ahead. Wait a minute.
I was
So much
raised in the suburbs. This is not 1950. All these dog whistles and racism don't work anymore. Suburbs are by and large integrated. There's many people today driving their kids to soccer practice and/or to black and white and Hispanic in the same car as there have been any time in the past. What really is a threat to the suburbs and their safety is his failure to deal with COVID. They're dying in the suburbs. His failure to deal with the environment. They're being flooded. They're being burned out because his refusal to do anything. That's why the suburbs are in trouble.
I do want to talk about this issue of law and order, though. And
that was an excellent answer. Excellent answer.
I think that
by
answer
Joe
was
Biden.
spot on. By the way,
And
I
you
just
know
had
what?
someone tell me. Go ahead, Sarah. Tara, go.
Now, I was just going to say that, as I'm biracial, and I grew up in the suburbs in a blue collar household in Bergen County, New Jersey. And you know what? The country is beginning to look more and more like me. You see more and more interracial families. You see more and more integrated communities, to Joe Biden's point. That is the future of this country. And it is not 1950 anymore. It is not the 1930s. It's not freaking Jim Crow anymore, where people of color couldn't get home loans and mortgages to move into the suburbs, or we had to have a Supreme Court, civil rights laws and things passed in this country so that people who look like me could have equal access to living in good communities, to go to good schools and get good jobs and get those loans. And I think that message resonates with a lot of the people in this country. It doesn't resonate with the white supremacists and the nationalists and the people who are afraid of people of color, or the demographics changing in this country. It may not resonate with them, but they are the minority, and they are not the majority of this country, the people who feel like that. So I thought that was an excellent answer by Joe Biden. And to turn it around and talk about COVID and how that's impacting the suburbs, because it was a brilliant way to remind those people that Donald Trump's failure is killing those people in the suburbs. So I thought that was one of the best moments for Joe Biden tonight.
I think you can tell something by the people that are praising Trump. Who else is praising Trump tonight on his unhinged performance? He's got the Proud Boys. And I think that tells you a lot. And there you go. You have some fascistic iconography on the new shoulder patch for the kit that they'll be wearing to a state capitol near you pretty soon. I do think one thing that deserves mentioning is always one of my favorite Trump things and it never gets called out. And so I'd like to talk about it. They'll not talk about this on any other network tonight. But when he started talking about the forest people, and he started talking about people that he talked to and the forest people, and about, apparently, I didn't know this, but California, I lived in California for a long time without knowing that California's trees are a lot more combustible than the flame retardant European trees from the forest, which are immaculately groomed where the forest people are. And I'm just wondering, is I'd like to challenge somebody out there. It could be anyone, someone watching, intrepid Twitter reporter, anybody at all. I want to get to the bottom of this. First off, right, there are a couple places you can stay in America, where you can go stay in a treehouse for a weekend. But I always thought it was a good idea ever since the Star Wars movies. I thought the Ewoks looked like happy people. They lived in trees. So I just want to know.
Filmed in California. Redwood trees.
Where are the forest people? How do you get there? How are they handling COVID? Are
they
kids
elven Americans?
Right. What's happening? But I want to know more about the forest people, the leader of them. that Trump talked to.
One movement I think the Lincoln Party is to get behind is giving the moderator in the next debate the right to turn off mics.
Absolutely.
Because
Stuart,
that's the
actually, I
only way to
disagree
deal
with
with
that. Actually, I disagree with
Okay.
that. I think we have to give the moderator in the next debate shock collars, like they use with wild dogs.
There's no thinking that.
Yeah, but you can still hear them. You can still hear them with the shock collars on.
I think the moderator needs a taser.
Oh my gosh. Listen, Chris Wallace had an impossible task tonight. I thought that he did the best he could do in the circumstances. Like I said before, I thought that he did go after Trump to try to chastise him like a child. I mean, it was literally like an unruly child. But
Every
oftentimes
parent has
Biden
seen that look.
Yes, absolutely.
No.
And I think that Biden came out sometimes because he lost the time, and that he would, just as he was getting good, he would lose the momentum of his rebuttal. But all I know is that we know who the next moderators are. They're not going to be able to handle this. No one else who is slated to be a moderator has the same tenacity and the same assertiveness that Chris Wallace has. And I just have no idea how they're going to handle this moving forward. If we thought this was a shit show, the next two are going to be 10 times worse. But I think we have a clip I think that we want to show of Trump's behavior.
Well,
I got rid of the individual mandate. Excuse me. I got rid of the individual mandate, which was a big chunk of Obama. That is absolutely a big thing. That was the worst part of Obamacare.
Sir.
Chris, that was the worst part of Obama.
Let me ask my question.
Well, I'll ask Joe. The individual mandate was the most unpopular aspect of Obamacare. I got rid of it.
I'd like
and we will protect people
President,
with
I'm the moderator of this
conditions.
debate, and I would like you to let me ask my question, and then you can answer your question.
That was the first 10 minutes of the debate, and it was so much worse after that.
All right, let me look. When is the next presidential debate? When is the next presidential debate?
2 weeks.
22nd.
15.
Right. So here's what I think is going to happen, right? You never want to make predictions, but I'm going to put myself out there. I think the ground's going to move. I think the rumble we hear off in the distance is the sound of poll numbers moving. I think that every senator in a close race out there tonight is like, holy shit. I think that, the Trump campaign is on Air Force One flying back. They'll be all telling him what a great job he did, how powerful, how strong he showed them on all this stuff. But, reality is going to begin to sink in here over the next 24 to 48 hours. And I think the bottom's going to fall out for him politically. And I don't think there's a lot of elasticity in this race at all to begin with. So I don't think that there's a lot of room to move, but it's going to move a couple of points. His performance was that bad. And
Steve,
and then that raises the question for Biden, in my view. Do you even do debates 2 and 3? You look at the performance.
That's interesting.
What I would.
That's interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it's just such a disgrace.
I mean, Stu and Steve, can you guys imagine if we had a dial group running in a focus group, what people would be doing during that debate?
I wonder, Frank
particularly.
We used to ask the question.
I would be curious to see what Frank Luntz's focus group says, because he always does that during the dials, Frank Luntz. So I'd be curious to see the responses, especially from women. Go ahead, Stu. Sorry.
Well, go ahead, Stu.
No, I was just going to say, we used to ask the question, who would you like to have a beer with? Who's more likable? And Trump just came across as tremendously unlikable.
But that was the same in 2016, though, Stuart, and people still voted for him. You know what I mean?
Hillary,
the likable, unlikable is.
The difference is you've had to live with it for 4 years.
That's
true. Guys, wait. In Frank Luntz's focus groups tonight, Ruthie from Pennsylvania said she was undecided coming in, but is now voting for Biden. She described Trump as behaving like a crackhead.
Crackhead is an interesting term, but okay. I told you.
Is crackhead where you want to end up after a debate? No. Tara, Stuart and I need to briefly drop off, but we'll be back. We're going to bring in Mike Madrid here in a moment if the control room has that up and running.
Well, while the control room
Matt,
while they get that together, we'll bid you adieu for now and
we'll
welcome
be
you
right
back when you
back.
guys are finished. We got it from here until you guys come back. To Steve's point about the bottom falling out. Listen, Donald Trump is running record deficits right now with the gender gap with women. The ABC poll that just came out 2 days ago showed record gender deficits with Biden and Trump. So I think that after tonight's debate, you're going to see the numbers with women get worse. There is no way he improves that. There's just no way after that performance. Steve?
Yeah, is it no question about it. I mean, his comportment was just complete throughout the entirety of this debate from the first moment. I mean, he was dishonest throughout it. He was personal. He was nasty. He was corrupt. He was incoherent. He was all the things we know Trump is to be. And I think that as the debate progressed, Biden had good moments in this debate. He had good moments on Trump's desecration of our war dead in the military. Thought that was a spectacular moment for Biden. He had a spectacular moment talking about COVID when he talked about the empty chairs and he talked about the loss in this country. But I think that Donald Trump, it's funny when you meet Trump for the first time, and I've only met him twice.
Because you were trying to get a job, right? Right, Steve?
Yeah, right.
No, he wasn't. That's a joke, folks. It's a joke.
No truth that he's superficially charming, right? He's a salesman, right? He's a different guy in private, but you hear people say, "What a mean-spirited, bullying asshole he is," right? Knows everything, and that's what you saw tonight, and that's exactly what he is. That's how he conducts himself in the Oval Office. That's how he conducts himself in the White House. That lack of control, that lack of ability to listen, his lack of personal control is why we have 200,000 dead people in this country. And Joe Biden said it perfectly. It's because of who you are.
That's right.
And
Let's
Trump
actually roll that. Let's roll that clip. Joe Biden made a really, really powerful point on that and COVID and its impact on everyday Americans.
Spoke to the scientists that are in charge.
By the way,
they will have the vaccine very soon.
Let him finish.
Do you believe for a moment what he's telling you in light of all the lies he's told you about the whole issue relating to COVID? He still hasn't even acknowledged that he knew this was happening, knew how dangerous it was going to be back in February, and he didn't even tell you. He's on record as saying it. He panicked or he just looked at the stock market, one of the two, because guess what? A lot of people died, and a lot more are going to die unless he gets a lot smarter, a lot quicker.
Mr. President?
That sent chills down my spine, right?
Well, I thought the clip that immediately follows that was the most interesting psychological moment of the debate. And I'd love it if we could bring that clip up when he says that wasn't smart, and Trump reacts to that viscerally, angrily, with rage in his eyes that Joe Biden has dared to suggest that Trump has acted in a way that wasn't smart, that triggered him, and Trump started to spiral out of control. And I think Wallace threw him a lifeline through the interruption. And there are moments in a debate where you're interrupting and you're rude and you can't hear anything, where the moderator must interrupt. And I don't think Wallace did a particularly good job at that. There are other moments in the debate where a candidate is in the process of revealing themselves, right?
Yep.
And Trump was in that moment revealing himself in a way right on the edge right? Of what we all know this guy to be, and Wallace let him out of let him out of the shooting gallery on this. But I think
we have the clip. We have the clip, Steve. Let's play it. We have the clip.
Let's play it. Let's watch this. This is incredible.
Questions about the future, because you both have touched on two of the questions I'm going to ask. Focusing on the future first, President Trump, you have repeatedly either contradicted or been at odds with some of your government's own top scientists. The week before last, the head of the Centers for Disease Control, Dr. Redfield, said it would be summer before the vaccine would become generally available to the public. You said that he was confused and mistaken. Those were your two words.
Yeah.
But Dr. Slaoui, the head of your Operation Warp Speed, has said exactly the same thing. Are they both wrong?
Well, I've spoken to the companies, and we can have it a lot sooner. It's a very political thing because people like this would rather make it political than save lives. It is a very political thing. I've spoken to Pfizer. I've spoken to all of the people that you have to speak to. We have great Moderna, Johnson & Johnson, and others. They can go faster than that by a lot. Become very political because the left, or I don't know if I call them left, I don't know what I call them.
The head of your Operation Warp Speed, Dr. Slaoui?
I disagree with him. Yeah, no, I disagree with both of them. And he didn't say that. He said it could be there, but it could also be much sooner. I had him in my office 2 days ago.
He talked about the summer, sir, before it's generally available.
Just like he said, it's a possibility that we'll have the answer before November 1st. It could also be after that.
When it's generally available.
Well, we're going to deliver it right away. We have the military all set up legit.
That was actually a different clip, but that was another moment that was starting to get into Trump not listening to the experts. You know, that he knows better. Again, he used the tactic of interrupting, and throwing everyone off the subject at hand to distract from the fact that Chris Wallace was nailing him on the fact that he wasn't being consistent with the experts who are trying to save American lives and what's in their best interest. What did you think about that segment of it? We're going to see if we can pull up what Steve was talking about before.
I mean,
go ahead.
What's amazing about it, right, is you're sitting back there and, you know, everybody is watching this, you know, as we have as a general proposition, right? We're all in our own bubbles, right? You're sitting there and watching it. You know, 6-7 months into this, him talking about, no, we'll have the vaccine by November 1st, right?
Yeah.
But your experts, Mr. President, tell you that's not going to happen. No. It's going to be by November 1st.
They're wrong.
And I thought it was a really effective moment when the vice president laughs, you know, with his head down, shaking his head in disbelief, which is, I don't know what else you're supposed to do as a human being when you hear the nonstop nonsense, but then looking into the camera and ultimately saying, right, that you believe this guy? You know, the guy that told you to inject Lysol and disinfectant, the guy who told you it would all go away, that it would disappear, that it was a hoax, it was a Democratic hoax, who lied to the country 120 times. And because of that lie, and I wish the vice president had said what the lie is. It's the most lethal lie in American history. And it is.
Yep.
It is. The suffering the guy has caused in 4 years, and it's amazing to sit and watch Donald Trump assert that he's done a good job as president. I mean, that's the premise he's running on. 4 more years. I've done great. I've done things in 47 months that no one's ever been able to do, which is right. Right? You know, we've never been more precariously perched as a country with regard to the status of our democracy and our republic. No one else has ever presided over a disaster like this. No one else has lied to the country 27,000 times. There are, as our friend Stuart Stevens says, there are more unemployed people on this day, on this September 29th in American history than there is on any other September 29th since July 4th, 1776. And Donald Trump is the person who's responsible for that. It's Donald Trump's economy. And everything that the guy says, everything that he asserts is just BS. It's not true. It's nonstop lying. And you look then at the crazy people in his echo chamber. Crazy Laura Ingraham at Fox News puts a tweet out saying, I can't believe how much Joe Biden was interrupting tonight.
I saw that.
It's just insane.
The propaganda is strong with those people. It's unreal how they continue to try and hurl the insults at everyone else with in opposition to what Donald Trump is actually doing. It's unbelievable. They do it all the time. You had Giuliani running around last night on Fox News talking about Biden being on enhanced drugs like Adderall. Hello, Donald Trump. I mean, it's unbelievable. There's really no limit to their duplicity on this. To your other point, before we bring in Sarah Lenti, we have another clip of how Biden characterized and reacted to a lot of Donald Trump's antics. He did. He just like closed his eyes. He shook his head. He called him a clown a couple times. He called him a liar. He looked at when he looked at the camera and was like, this guy, and he said that it was unpresidential how he was behaving. I mean, Biden went down the list at many times where he just got so frustrated with Donald Trump that he finally just told him to shut up. Roll the clip.
You're a senator. I'm not going to answer the question.
Why would you answer that question?
The question is the question is
Justice, radical left.
Will you shut up, man?
Listen, who is on your list, Joe?
Who's
on your list?
Right.
Gentlemen, I think
this
we've
is
ended
so
this.
unprecedented.
He's going to pack the court.
We have
not going to give a list.
We have ended this segment. We're going to move on to the second segment.
That was really
I think Joe Biden was, but when he started to say this is unpresidential, he's a liar. Do you believe this guy? This is, that was the right tone, I thought. And I'm glad that Biden was able to get some of those shots in because you needed to point it out. He had to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, as you said, and you as they watch the debate tapes with the vice president, for the next one, and you get a sense of what Trump's going to do and who he's going to be, is to essentially to be ready for the moment to be able to turn with him. You act like this because you are losing. You're acting like this because you're a failure. You're lying because you lack self-control and you lack achievement. I do think that, if I have some unsolicited advice to the Biden campaign, is sit down and watch this with a psychiatrist. Watch it with someone who profiles people who have Trump's afflictions, and know how to strike back at him. I think that's an important thing. And it's what we were talking about. And I know one of the things we'll be talking about tomorrow morning at the Lincoln Project is how unhinged he got when Biden used that word smart. So everybody look for that angle in some ads coming to a market near you. You saw Trump's rage on that front for sure.
You know what, Steve? It was clear to me that the Biden campaign did have some of those rebuttals ready. They did, because he started to do it. You heard him start to go down that road. And then Trump would overtalk him, interrupt him, and then Biden would lose the momentum of the zinger because of the back and forth between Chris Wallace and Trump. So I think they can definitely, you're right, they could definitely benefit from sitting down with a psychologist, analyzing what triggers Trump and what zingers were starting to work. And Biden has to make sure that if that happens again, if they in fact debate again, that he knows how to get back to it. Go back to it. Don't let it get lost and drowned out in the back and forth. When it's his turn to speak again, you go right back to it. And I think that's what he was trying to do when he would turn to the camera and start to speak to the American people directly. But then Chris Wallace either wouldn't let him finish, which is the example you were talking about where he wasn't doing things well, or Trump would just keep talking, and then Biden either just decided to abandon it. And I hope that people saw that and saw where he was going with it. Are we ready to bring in Sarah?
Who wouldn't be ready to bring in Sarah?
Great. Well, it wasn't her. It was her. It was technical. Sarah's always ready to go. All right, let's bring in Sarah Lenti and Mike Madrid to join our conversation in our post-debate analysis. The first presidential debate between Biden and Donald Trump. It was a doozy, and there's lots to talk about. Sarah, let's start with you. You're a mom. You're a suburban mom, not a suburban housewife, but a suburban mom.
Yep.
What was your
Urban
reaction?
suburban.
That's right, urban suburban. You're isn't there? There's a word for exurban, right?
Yeah.
What was your reaction to the debate tonight? What stood out the most to you?
Several things. I thought that Biden looked good. I thought, in terms of you can't argue where he is mentally, physically, or temperamentally. I thought he did an incredible job when he spoke about COVID and Trump's lack of leadership. I thought he did great with the voter integrity question. He spelled out what Americans need to do, and he looked directly at them. You juxtapose that to the president immediately when they cut to him, and he's first talked about himself and how the election and the transition, it had nothing to do with voter integrity. And then, Biden also answered the really tough questions. He was asked about the rule of law. He was asked about violence, and he answered the question directly. And then he answered the question when they asked him about, what will happen if the election isn't, decided? And he said he would wait to certify. So I think he did what he needed to do. And then I think he also killed it with respect to demeanor. So the president acted like a toddler tonight. I have 2 5-year-olds. I mean, his behavior was worse than theirs on a good day, on a good bad day. And then there were those moments where the president kept talking over him, and and particularly when he was talking about Beau and Hunter, and Biden just closed his eyes and he was like waiting. It was hard to watch, but at the same time, you knew he was just internalizing it. He was holding it together. I thought he did an incredibly good job, again, temperamentally and looking as a president should.
I agree. Mike Madrid?
Yeah, look, I'm struggling and I'm conflicted between whether I'm more sad for my country or more angry for my children. This was very difficult to watch. And I like Steve Schmidt just said, I'm not sure that we're worthy of this anymore because this was not a debate, this was a spectacle. And to continue to do this, I don't know if it has any civic value or any civic virtue in this. I think it continues to debase the process that we're unfortunately engaged in, and to keep entreating this in front of the American people, I don't know that it serves much of a purpose, nor does it even, I think, rise to the caliber of trying to do the tit for tat or debating or discussing who won. What did anybody win here? And look, I'm not trying to bring this down to a really
No, I think you represent
level,
a lot of people.
it was
Represent
disgusting.
a lot of
This was
people.
disgusting. This was not a debate, and we need to stop saying that it was. This was not a discussion. This was a spectacle. And what the purpose of the presidential debate and commissions was never designed for a period of time in American history where spectacle supplanted a policy discussion. There's an appropriate time and a place for disagreement and discussion on issues. But I think it's incumbent upon us, and look, we do this as a Lincoln Project, is call it out for what it is. But this was not a debate, and there will not be 2 more debates. And we need to quit acting like they are, because they're not. They're not debates.
Can I also say something? The president was giving instructions tonight. He told a white supremacist organization to stand back and stand by, and then he told his supporters to go protect the polls or there would be consequences. He was giving instructions.
Yeah.
Scary instructions, for sure.
He was threatening the country. He was threatening the country.
Yep.
I mean, make no mistake about that. Let's call it what it is. I do think, I agree with Mike, right, on that. It is disgraceful. It's embarrassing. I have the same, I have the same emotions for my kids, but I think we have to be careful because we don't want to. The spectacle was all Trump. There was nothing that Biden did that affronted the dignity of his previous office, of the office that he's aspiring to occupy. He didn't divide the country. I think that everybody near Trump, is gonna get muddy to some degree. But the spectacle and the disgrace in this was all Trump's. I'm trying to think here, if it's fair to be critical of Chris Wallace, for losing control of this, if it's even controllable. But I'll tell you this much. I think the moderators for the next debates are out of their minds if they'll agree to go do it without an off switch for Trump's microphone. They're crazy too, because they'll look like fools.
Yeah, it's
and look, let me be clear about this. I mean, I'm in agreement with you, Steve. I'm not suggesting that Biden was unseemly at all. I don't know that it behooves the American people or even the office of the presidency to engage what we all know is coming. I think that we are positioned, hopefully, for a time of healing to move beyond this, a time when we can restore some dignity, not just to the Oval Office, but to American civic life. And I commend him for standing in there and taking it. I don't know if I would have had the temerity or the temperament to stand in there and have my son who lost his life be talked about that way, or a son who's struggling with addiction be dealt with that way. He was a consummate gentleman, a consummate statesman, and I credit him for that. But I also think that the campaign needs to think really long and hard about not engaging in this because it validates this spectacle. And there's the Presidential Commission on Debates. This is a black eye for them too. This does not look good. Not just because Wallace was unable to control it. Nobody could control it, the way Tara said. And it's only going to get worse. That's by design by this guy.
I would rather see Trump do that again and again, though. I'd rather see him do it two more times and have Biden continue to look like the leader.
No.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that they're going to. This is an interesting debate, and I guarantee you that the Biden campaign is having that discussion. I just don't know how that comes across, because then Fox is going to, and you know, Fox and all those crazies are going to say that Biden's a coward and he doesn't want to, you know, he's running away from Trump because Trump is so strong and mighty. So there's downsides to that too. You know, deciding that this is such a spectacle, we're not going to do it anymore. I don't know if the high road wins necessarily here, because I think, like you said, Sarah, there are a lot of people that still want to see how they're going to handle it. I don't know. It's going to be a challenge moving forward no matter what. I just want to go back to something that you brought up, Mike. The moment where, and I don't know if we have a clip on this or not, I don't think we do, but the moment when Biden started to get passionate about Trump insulting the military, I was really glad to see that Biden brought up the fact that there were, you know, Russian bounties on our military men and women over there in Afghanistan, and Trump didn't do shit about it. When he started to talk about his son serving honorably, Beau Biden serving honorably over there and winning the Bronze Star. And then, of course, Trump started to go after Hunter. That exchange was probably one of the most despicable exchanges that we will ever witness in presidential debate history. Donald Trump going after, disgracing Beau Biden's service and memory, and everyone else who has served in the military, calling them suckers and losers, and then pivoting to attacking Hunter Biden again, talking about his drug use and his, you know, dismissal from the military because of it. Biden started to have a really powerful answer that, again, Trump interrupted, and Chris Wallace did not allow Biden to finish. But this is the tactic that I had been demanding that Biden do a year ago. Once we saw that Hunter Biden was going to become a fixture here and an attack by the Trump people, that Biden needed to go straight to the heart of it, embrace it. Yes, my son had a drug problem, just like millions of other Americans and families that have suffered through this, and he overcame it. And we as a family helped him overcome that, and I'm proud of my son. I was so glad to hear Biden do that, because guess what? Opioid problems and overdoses are ravaging Trump country. This is something that a lot of families in this country can relate to. And for Donald Trump to be so heartless and be so visceral about this and use that, I think, is an affront to a lot of families that deal with that at home. And Joe Biden tried at least to get that out, and the point that at least he got some of it out. I don't know if it was lost on people because of the overtalk, but Biden needs to continue to do that. The one thing he should have done, though, concerning Hunter, I don't know why he didn't say this. Why didn't he just say, my son, Hunter Biden, is not running for the presidency. You are, and I am. Stop attacking my son, who is not running for the office of the presidency to distract away from your failures. That's all he had to say. My son's not running for the presidency. Go ahead,
And
Steve.
my son will never, ever work in the White House like
Right.
your
I
grifter
tweeted that.
children did, who are making
That's right.
$100 million a year, right? When you
That's
look
right.
at Jared and Ivanka. And look, I just want to say something, is we are all of us works in progress. And to see Donald Trump attack Hunter Biden in that way on an addiction is so sick, given the fact that Trump lost his own brother to addiction, number one, that Hunter Biden is doing well. And I'm going to say it. His son is all over television since the Republican National Convention. And if that kid isn't wasted out of his mind, excuse me, he's not a kid. If that man, Donald Trump Jr., isn't wasted out of his mind, I don't know what wasted out of your mind looks like. He clearly looks like to me that he's got a serious substance abuse problem. And I want to say something else. If you want to talk about families, I think it's a legitimate issue because I saw that disgraceful Trump family walk in, from Kimberly Guilfoyle and Eric's wife, who's on the campaign payroll, and Kimberly, who's on the campaign payroll, and who knows how much money they're getting off the campaign payroll. Every one of them has benefited and fed at the taxpayer trough like pigs for the last 3.5 years. They are a stain on the White House, on our country, on our polity, on our civic institutions. They are a disgraceful family. How dare he sit up there and attack this good American family like that?
That's
no
right.
family's perfect. Every family has problems, but they want this fight. Let me tell you, we look forward in this organization of bringing it to them.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you said that, Steve, because sitting there, I was screaming at the television. And, I've had the opportunity to have interactions closely with the Biden family and watched that family. And, that is a close-knit family. They love each other. And like you said, many families have imperfections. And they are closer to what an average American family looks like than anything the Trumps have ever done. This idea that somehow Hunter Biden is some boogeyman that's done all this stuff. It's just to distract from all of the despicable, disgusting things that the Trump family is doing, has done, and it's there for generations, all the way back to his father and grandfather who ran away from military service, his grandfather in Germany, and then his father here, that they've never served anyone in their lives. They have no idea what it's like to be a public servant, where the Biden family, every one of them has served, they've been public servants at some point in their lives. So there is no comparison, and I'm glad that we're going to take the gloves off on that, because the American people need to see the comparison. The contrast could not be any starker. Sarah, you want to weigh in? Sarah Lenti, can you hear me?
Yeah, I was just going to say that moment when Vice President Biden started to talk about, the moment when Vice President Biden started to talk about Beau, and it seemed like didn't know who he was talking about. That was like enriching and disgraceful. I knew Beau when he was the Attorney General of Delaware, and what a gentleman, what a wise AG he was, and he served our country. And Biden used the words losers and suckers, and the president was just like, I just thought that spoke volumes to me.
So, unfortunately, Sarah's connection is a little choppy. Sarah's connection is a little choppy, but from what I heard, she was saying that Beau Biden was a gentleman, and that's true. And in the pre-show, I said that this debate was going to be between the hustler and the gentleman, and that is exactly what we saw, and that's exactly the choice that the American people have. And it was disgraceful to see Donald Trump go after the Biden sons that way. And I hope that Joe Biden continues to show that same passion moving forward when that comes up, because I think that turns people off, especially women like Sarah and that demographic, which I feel is going to make the difference in this election in many of the swing states. Mike Madrid, do you agree with that?
I actually think it's a bigger problem than that. I don't think this is about women or women's issues or how offended women are anymore. I think you need to be offended as a human being by this. I think you
Oh,
need to
for
be offended
sure.
as an American. You need to be offended as an American by this. Look, for the last week, we've seen a deterioration of blue collar, non college educated white males. So the core Trump constituency moving away from him. I think this hurts him even further if we're talking about just crass, political reactions. But look, this offends the sensibilities. This is not about suburban women anymore. And I know we've been talking about that and communicating to that demographic for the better part of a year. This is so much bigger than that now. This is about the very core of the American identity. And we need to start looking at it that way and reacting to it that way and understanding it that way and putting it in perspective. What I will also say is this. I think Steve Schmidt is again right that we need to, as a Lincoln Project, start prosecuting the case against Donald Trump at the level he is at. You don't get to choose where your opposition is going to attack, but if he's going to go below you, then you meet him where he is at. You don't try to beat him with virtue when your opponent has none. You don't try to be, have some semblance of any sort of virtue when your opponent is shameless. And I think that there are certain things that Joe Biden cannot do and perhaps should not do politically. But I'm more committed now than ever to take and prosecute that case to Donald Trump in the same way that he's bringing it and delivering it to the American people. I don't value that. I don't look forward to that. Candidly, I'm not proud of that. But the moment requires it, and it's incumbent upon us, frankly, I think we're obliged, we're obligated to do it. And I hope that the American people rally around this so that we drive this type of scourge from our ranks and hopefully send such a strong message that it never comes back again.
I just want to say,
Amen
Mike,
to that.
you shouldn't feel bad about it. You should feel great about it, because what we're going to do is a public service with regard to this wretched family. And everything we do is going to be truthful. We're going to tell the truth on them. We're going to talk about how they have desecrated the highest honor that an American citizen could receive, which is the honor to live in that house at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, to be the first family, right? To be the president of the United States, the head of state of the United States of America, the commander in chief of the armed forces of the United States. The lack of dignity, the decorum, the sheer disgustingness of these people for 3.5 years. I look forward to discussing in this last month of this campaign, because everything that Donald Trump said tonight about Hunter Biden was complete and total bullshit. And another moment of profound disgrace occurred today, and that was the release of Russian disinformation by the director of national intelligence about Hillary Clinton, some bullshit plot that they invented out of whole cloth about her for Donald Trump's use in the debate tonight.
That's
the
unbelievable.
politicization of the intelligence agencies, the lack of boundaries, the intimation to violence, the encouragement to white supremacist organizations that we saw in this debate present in their totality a great danger to this country. And we should take everything this guy says seriously. We're obligated to that.
That's right. 100%, because Donald Trump doesn't joke. And you're 100% right about that, Steve. And I know that our supporters and our followers and viewers are waiting with bated breath to see what the Lincoln Project has in store in that vein. Before we go to some viewer questions and answers here, because we promised that we would, we asked people to tweet us, ask the breakdown. So we're going to definitely take some of your questions. I just want to show the clip that we have about Hunter Biden, the clip that we've been referencing for the last few minutes, because I think we have it.
Thirdly, we're poor. The billionaires have gotten much more wealthy by a tune of over $300 to $400 billion more just since COVID. You in the home, you got less. You're in more trouble than you were before. In terms of being more violent, when we were in office, there were 15% less violence in America than there is today. He's president of the United States. It's on his watch. And with regard to more divided, the nation can't stay divided. We can't be this way. And speaking of my son, the way you talk about the military, the way you talk about them being losers and being and just being suckers. My son was in Iraq. He spent a year there. He got the Bronze Star. He got the Conspicuous Service Medal. He was not a loser. He was a patriot, and the people left behind there were heroes.
Really?
And I resent.
Are you talking
like
about
hell.
Hunter? Are you talking about Hunter?
I'm talking about my son, Beau Biden. You're talking about.
I don't know Beau. I know Hunter.
Yeah,
Hunter
you know
got
Beau.
thrown. Hunter got thrown out of the military. He was thrown out, dishonorably discharged.
That's not true.
And the rest of
Not
that
true.
clip is what. That's right. It's not true. And the rest of that clip is when Joe Biden comes in and looks at the camera and talks about how there are millions of American families that have gone through the heartache of drug addiction and how Hunter has overcome that and that he's proud of him. You want to say anything else, Steve, on that before we go to viewer questions?
Nope, I'm good. Let's get some questions.
All right, let's take them. What's our first viewer question? All right, a liberal half won. I want guesses as to Trump's poll numbers nationally after this. Mike Madrid, I'm going to let you answer that, but just a word of caution. National polls don't matter. Go ahead.
Look, before this debate, I was one of the most strident advocates of suggesting that debates really don't matter or move public opinion. But I think Steve is right. In the intro of the first part of this show, I think this was so off the rails that you're going to see anywhere from a 4 to 5 point drop nationally in the next 72 hours, which is extremely significant. Whether that's sustainable or not, I don't know. But I think that there's going to be a visceral reaction in the country, and I think that I think it's going to define the rest of the 35, 36 days that we have remaining in this campaign. I don't know that you can kind of unwrite this script that has been written. And while I think that the Trump base, which troublingly I think will continue to support this, I think that there are still a good enough swath of people within the Republican base and constituency for whom this will be the last straw, or at least I hope so.
You and me both. I'll be curious to see what the swing state polls say after this. If someone's conducting them, I hope so. Next question. Why are you sober? So that we're able to do this for you. Believe me, when I worked in Capitol Hill, we used to play drinking games all the time with these things, with debates. And I mean, it was a tradition. State of the Union and debates. There were always drinking games. And believe me, most of us were never sober by the end of them. But then again, we didn't have to go on television afterward and be sober to bring this stuff to you guys. But after this, I guarantee you, all of us are going to take a stiff drink of something alcoholic. Next question.
I think as Rick Wilson once said, we are sober because Donald Trump Jr. is not.
Oh my gosh. All right. Facts matter. Do you think there'll be another increase in donations before the end of the quarter tomorrow because of tonight's debacle? Steve, what do you think? I think so.
Yeah,
We've seen, right? We've seen an amazing amount of donations after Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away. After the conventions, Joe Biden raised a historic amount of money. I think it was $360-something million. So why not after this? What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, look, I think that as people watch this, yes, right? Campaigns run on money. Send money. Send money to people that are in the fight. Send it to us, right? Send it to the Biden campaign. Send it to our friends at Priorities USA. Send it somewhere, because all these groups, all of us together, send it to Vote Vets. Send it to anybody who's in the fight, right? Because now is the finishing hour. It's time to finish these people. We've looked at the damage they've done for 3.5 years. We look at the catastrophe that's been caused in this country. Let me just say this too. My contempt for these Republican senators, literally at this hour, has never been higher, right? It's reached like its apogee. That this buffoon, this malice buffoon, is what they have sold every principle for, what they laid their integrity down for. This is the behavior they witnessed in the Oval Office. This is the behavior they witnessed in the private cloakroom meetings with Trump. This is the guy they know. This is the guy that every one of these people has refused to stand up and confront privately, publicly. And now all of these people, all of these senators, every one of them who knew that Trump lied, that he lied about how lethal COVID was, when he knew how dangerous it was. And now every one of them runs on the premise of, hey, I'm an independent voice, so I'll have your back. Get the fuck out of here. Unbelievable. Stay disgusting.
The sacred incantation of our tribe. Get the fuck out of here.
The fuck out
of here.
You know what?
For the
exactly
record,
right.
For the record, that is one of my favorite phrases of all time. I am from Jersey, and that is part of our DNA. It's what the fuck and get the fuck out of here. So we're bonded on that. Go ahead, Rick.
I just want to echo what Steve was saying. I promise you tomorrow, you will not see a single Republican senator out there with a stirring condemnation of white supremacy or the Proud Boys. They will keep quiet. They won't condemn the fact that the president tonight once again said that he won't make a peaceful transition if the results aren't what he wants. So once again, you will see the chicken shit caucus do what they do. You will see the chicken shit caucus go out and tweet Bible verses or say something elliptical or say, oh, I don't know what Twitter is. I never saw it. What debate? Who's Donald Trump? They're going to play the same bullshit games they've been playing. This is why many of them are going to lose their seats. This did not help them tonight. This did not give them something to run on or someone to run with. This was pure chum for the Trump base. And I think it's an example once again of that disconnect between what they claim their principles are and what they actually are, because these folks do not give a shit about anything except keeping on Donald Trump's good list.
And welcome back, Rick Wilson. You emerged.
I am back. I am back. I have emerged from my other brief obligations in this world. So
back with
I do want to say, guys. I do want to say, guys. They are total bullshit. But the CNN poll apparently says that 63% declared Biden the winner and 28% Trump. The Trump troll bot army couldn't even shift that poll fast enough and large enough to show him with a win. I got to tell you, I have a suspicion the overnights are gonna be absolutely brutal on this. And if you just watched Trump, if you took Biden out of this debate and just played the tape of Trump's behavior and his facial expressions and his affect tonight, it's like, would you let this guy sit next to you on a subway car? Fuck no, you would run.
Not even in New York City.
My favorite thing tonight, I'm going to keep going back to this. This woman in a Frank Luntz focus group tonight said, I was undecided, but when I saw Trump tonight, he was acting like a crackhead. Okay. I mean,
except that he's a little overweight to be a crackhead.
Look, Tara, he could be learning. He could be a novice crackhead. He could be working. I mean, I think Don Jr. could give him some advice on this. It's my opinion, at least.
Remember?
You missed Steve's pontifications on that earlier.
You mean the idea that Donald Trump Jr. may or may not be an aficionado of Bolivian marching powder?
Perhaps. let's take another viewer question. We're going to take 2 more viewer questions.
An avid skier, if you will.
Right, before this goes completely off the rails since it's after midnight. All right, Alistair Jones, where does this stand in the history of televised debate performances? Steve, this is just straight down the middle, fastball down the middle for you.
It is. No, it's like Mike Madrid's right about this. It's the only debate that's ever been that's just been like humiliating for the country. It's humiliating.
Yeah, sure.
Like it's humiliating. Like
earlier tonight, some of my Harvard students were texting with me, my student liaisons from when I was a fellow there, and they're the Gen Zers, right? They're 18 to 22 years old, and they were horrified by this. And I don't think that they're alone. I don't think that sentiment is unique to their generation. I think it spans generations, to Mike Madrid's point. So, everyone was looking at this, minus the Trump base, I think, with some despair about how the hell did we get here. I was getting text messages while we've been on air from friends of mine that I haven't talked to in years, texting me and asking me, what the hell was that? What did we just witness? How did we get here? So I think it has certainly unearthed some emotions in people who may not have been engaged before, that are certainly paying more attention to it now.
So, Tara,
Absolutely.
some of the saddest commentary on social media tonight was from people showing pictures of their 5th and 6th graders that had to watch this debate for a civics class and write a report on it. And I think that's why I'm just so bothered by what I saw. This is literally what they are framing their worldview on. I mean, all of us have a very powerful, emotive remembrance of our first political memory, and a lot of us chose to get into this profession and this line of work because of that, as an aspirational calling to make a difference and to do something better. There's a whole generation of kids, teenagers, young people, Harvard students who are watching this. This is the President of the United States of America, and it's a spectacle, and it is humiliating as an American, and it's angering as an American. And it reminds me again of the first time I got that phone call asking if I wanted to be involved with this effort, and immediately to say absolutely, because there's nothing more important at this moment in time. And meeting this moment for all of us, I think, requires gathering the anger and the humiliation, the sadness and the frustration, and focusing it for the next month, because the heartbreaking story of all this is there's still a third of us in this country that will take the time to go and show up and vote for this disaster.
They can't win with the third. Can't win with the
That's
third.
True.
God bless.
That's true.
And the bottom line is, I know for all of us, we wish these people well, but under no circumstances are we going to let them rule over us politically. They're not the majority of the country, and we're going to put this insanity in the grave.
Yep. And so, folks, it's after midnight, and normally that would be the time that Steve and I host our UFO show on LPTV. You think we're joking? We're not joking.
That's how you stay sane. That's where you get all your inspiration from. You put your tinfoil hats on, and you get it from
Wilson and Schmidt after dark.
Oh my gosh! I think that's probably a good place for us to end it tonight. Mike Madrid, thank you so much. And by the way, my first political experience was volunteering to be Geraldine Ferraro when I was 9 years old, because she was the first woman to be a vice presidential candidate, and I was so eager to volunteer to be her in a mock debate in my 4th grade class. Obviously, I didn't become a Democrat. However, I was so inspired by that as a young girl in New Jersey that I thought it was an honor to play her in a mock debate, because partisanship didn't matter there. It was about the gravitas of the office of the vice presidency and the president.
Yep.
And imagine what 4th graders are looking at this disaster and what they're thinking. It's that's a really poignant point, and I'm glad you made it. Mike Madrid, thank you so much. And Steve Schmidt, always a pleasure, always bringing the fire. Thank you so much, my friend. Back at it tomorrow. Rick Wilson,
Here we
thank you
go.
for coming back and joining us. I'll let you take it off. I'll let you take it home.
Well, folks, it was a terrible debate for Donald Trump. Let's just keep that in mind. He's had a terrible week. He's had a terrible month. He's had a terrible summer. He's had a terrible presidential career. We are closing in on about a month to go. Stay in the game. Stay in the fight. Stay motivated. Stay energized. Come back and see us again next time on LPTV.
We'll see you.